Ladies and gentlemen, today is October the 20th, 2024, and we are here to talk about the world. Current events, foreign policy, economics, you name it, we'll talk about it in another episode of World Discussion with Agent Smith. But also, a very special guest returning to the segment, Bittersugar, our friend from Ukraine. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, cheers. I'm glad that you're alive and well. For people who did not see the previous discussion, whenever the war broke out in Ukraine, we had a friend in the chat, Bittersugar, who is a Dota god. For some context, he's a divine Dota player and has given me a lot of tips on my Dota journey because I'm not at that level yet. So a lot of useful stuff, and then having a first-hand perspective in what's going on. And one of the themes that we'll likely be talking about a lot today is information and propaganda, and how, depending on what news you read, you get a different report of the same event. And these reports can sometimes be dramatically different from each other and what actually went down. So from your perspective, obviously you're existing in a sovereign nation, a invading country attacks your home, and you have to make defensive adjustments to deal with that, and you're trying to survive and get help and defend your country and so on. So very grateful that you came on before. You seem to be thriving and doing fine. How are you doing? Just on a personal level.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. And I'm sorry in advance for my rusty English because it's been a while since I've spoken to someone. But so feel free to ask me to repeat something. I'm totally fine with it. So actually, for the past 2 years, I can say it's been a struggle, but constant stress and other stuff that happens around, it kind of grows on you. If you remember, I told you about my parents' house, that the area that it was occupied since the start of the war, but then in the fall of 2022, it was liberated. So we were able to go back to take our stuff, and we thought that everything should be like okay during these times because people started to return back to the village, and we were full of hope that someday we will be able to return, or at least my parents, because I think I'm in Kyiv, in the capital, for a while because of work. But my parents, they really wanted to return to their little house and continue on living there. But in September of this year, so like 2 months ago, the village was shelled, and unfortunately, the house was burned. So yeah, it seems like they will have to stay right here beside us, beside me and brother. So now they have nowhere to return.
Tim, how did you get news of the house and they made it out okay?
It's actually been on the news, and we have like my generation, my people of my age, we use Telegram app as a main source of getting information, and every little city has its own Telegram chat, and we were able to read news from that particular place. So yeah, we saw the news. We saw people filming videos of the forest fire that occurred during the shelling, and there were no one to extinguish this fire because of war events. Yeah, that's actually the main problem, because forest fires are really common right now because of war activities, and there are no people to extinguish. So fire spreads, and little villages, they just burn down because of the forest fires. That's what happened to our village. So like 80% of houses were destroyed just because fire was unstoppable. Something like that.
Normally, a fire would be just taken care of by fire department normally, like in the
Yeah,
city.
of course. There are different like fires. Forest fires were very common in that area, and they happened every summer because of high temperatures and dry wood. But there are many techniques that were used to prevent them from spreading. Like they cut lines in trees. So yeah, but just the lack of people that perform these activities lets these fires spread. Yeah, but that's kind of a sad note. Uh, we can move on from this. So yeah, we got the news via Telegram. We saw videos of people filming their houses burning, and then we have some contacts with our neighbors, like people that used to be our neighbors. We were able to speak with them, and they gave us some information. And then later, when the fire was off, so like everything just burned, and like in 2 or 3 days, a friend of ours, he just went to our home and filmed a little video for us to estimate the damages and show us what is still you know what left. But
What
yeah,
do people do in terms of their resources in the home? Like, do people normally have insurance and then they get something to fall back on, or are people just losing what they have?
um, actually, now we have this program. It's from government. It's called відновлення. Sorry, I will use translator right now to. Well, it's uh, basically it's called year reconstruction. So like we have a lot of government, a lot of apps, a lot of programs that are called like there is an action or there is a messenger like from government, and this program was called there is a recovery. So, є відновлення. Uh, that's actually the name in Ukrainian. So it allows you to use your phone and place an order, I guess, some sort, where you fixate the damages, you take photos, take videos, and then you go to the police station and you put like a statement that my house was destroyed during the events and such and such. And actually, if they confirm that your house was destroyed during the war related events, you uh, you can get reimbursed, I guess, for the square meters of your house. Like for if you have had a bigger house, you will get reimbursed more. But you cannot get like real money for this. You only have like a virtual amount that you may spend only on restorative purposes. So like there is a list of companies that like you may put your requests on, uh, like contractors or builders. You can choose from that list, and you can choose like whatever damages you want to be redone, and for the certain amount they can put put you in a queue. These queues are actually kind of long right now because a lot of people try to apply for this program of recovery. But actually, in our case, we are struggling with getting reimbursement for this because local government uh, doesn't want to recognize these damages as war related. So they say it just was a regular forest fire, nothing war related.
What?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So actually we are in the middle of, trying to figure it out. Yeah,
Can you
it's
not
slow.
use that money to get a new house built somewhere, or is that specifically for repairing damaged stuff?
Actually, you can uh, spend this money on a new house somewhere else, but there are also different limits, and
And
you can
probably
apply
another list that you have to be on.
only like with it's all corruption related. This topic is really, it's really actual right now. It's very acute and sharp. I guess it is shown in your news as well that we are battling corruption severely, and actually nowadays a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of muddy waters getting some light shed on. Yeah, so we can see that for us, just regular citizens, the amount of corruption in in our government, especially local ones like little uh, city government, is enormous. It's actually, we cannot believe that people can steal that much and still they are unsatiated. They continue to steal, and they accumulate absolutely ridiculous amount of money that they cannot spend, they cannot wash, uh, like launder, if I'm not mistaken. They steal like millions of dollars during their lives. They have it in their basements, packed in cloth bags, so no one can, they can just take these bags, like big sport bags, big sport bag where you can, carry your sports equipment. It's just filled with money. So like $300,000 in those bags, and just one of the news that I saw.
Is it the aid money that is?
Uh, I think they have it mixed. For example, people that are related to like different programs, they may steal, but uh, they are being kind of regulated. But the main source of this dirty, unfair money that they get is that the people that try to escape the country, like in non regulated ways, and people that they try uh, to uh, you know like have invalid status or like disabled person status, so you have an ability to avoid a military service.
Draft dodging.
Yeah, so this is really developed right here, right now. People use these services, they flee the country, or they stay in Ukraine, but when they get stopped by different patrols, we have patrols on the street, so you can be stopped and you can be asked for your ID and the reason that you are not drafted yet. So like my reason that I am not drafted, that I am still a PhD student, so I have like little deferment, if I'm not mistaken, or like
Correct.
postponement.
Deferment.
Uh, so my legal reason that I am not on the front line is that I am still studying. But people of my age, 25 plus years, they are all strictly monitored and regulated. We have this in May, if I'm not mistaken. So in the end of the summer and during the summer we had to go to local uh, uh, like like military registration offices, if I'm not mistaken, the English name of this. And we had to renew our data, so these military registration offices would be sure of their human resources. So it was mandatory. Every man 25 plus years should have gone there and should have renewed their addresses, like their phones, emails, and uh, undergo like medical commissions to determine if they are eligible fighting. Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, eligible. Yeah, not eligible, but I guess capable. So like if you have both legs and both arms, you have two eyes. You are a perfect soldier, and you are able to, join the services.
Are there people in your age range who you know who were conscripted?
Yes, of course. There are people in my in my circle that decided to go there by their own will.
Mm-hmm.
So
Volunteers.
yeah, it was in 2022. Uh, one one of them is he's alive, but he was injured. He was recovering. Actually, I have told you about him. The guy that was injured, and then he was bench pressing
Mm-hmm.
and deadlifting like 200 pounds again.
Nice.
Yeah. Now I have spoken to him, and I've seen the change in his behavior and in his, like world view. So I cannot imagine the stuff that he's seen, but I can surely tell that now he's a different person. And he is now like into this. He's uh, actually mentally strong, and he told me that his like brothers in arms, if I'm not mistaken the name.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them started to drink heavily, and they now uh, like severe alcoholics. But he was able to resist the urge, like so he switched heavily into sports, and he started to practice different like spiritual stuff. So he is grateful for every moment. He greets sun every morning. Like so he is different, but I think he's on a brighter spectrum of the stuff that can happen to you when you witness some war events, like by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to hear something about like our everyday life, like just
Yeah, because when you spoke with us before, there were a lot of active bombings on Kyiv, and you had to be like down in the train station and stuff. I think I remember talking to you in the
yeah,
underground.
yeah, that was right. That was actually for the first 3 months we were alerted and scared by every single air raid that was issued. But now, like basically right now, like the situation for the last, I guess, 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So like for the last 6 months, basically we have air raids, sirens, sounding practically every night or every day, because Russians send these Shaheds, UAV, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the Iranian drone.
Yeah, right. So you know this. So they actually successfully adapted to using them a lot. They built new plants so they could produce these Shaheds UAVs without having to import them from Iran. So in the meantime, our air defense is advanced greatly in fighting this stuff. So like we end up shooting the majority of drones. We, thanks to our allies, thanks to you, we have some advanced electronic warfare. So like we bring 95% of them down every night. And as citizens, we have an access, as I have mentioned, to different Telegram chats. There are chats that, like, not chats, but I guess channels, if it would be more correct to name them channels. They describe in a great detail where exactly one or another air target are in particular moment. So, like for example, if the air raid is issued in Kyiv, I'm able to assess in which direction a specific Shahed is flying. So, like which part of the city it is right now. So I can decide if I go hide in the shelter, of at least go behind two walls in my bathroom, like I did this night. So, like I'll explain. Like two walls is like a common advice uh, for citizens to take at least some kind of a cover, because direct hit is very unlikely, but the shockwave from air defense system works, or like, so if the Shahed is hitting this target, it may be close to you, but you are not like the so the shockwave that that may occur during different events that Shahed is Shahed related. So if it is being hit by air defense, or it is hitting his target, for you it doesn't uh, it doesn't have any difference, because either events create shockwave that may knock out your windows, and the shattered glass will just kill you. So yeah, two walls, like, so you should go at least behind two walls from that separate you from the street. So bathroom is a common place where you can, you know, at least somewhat have some kind of safety. So yeah, uh, and there are another causes for these raids to be issued. For example, yeah, in these Telegram channels, we can see actually why the particular air raid right now, like why the siren is sounding right now. So like there are several types of possible air targets. Uh, Cruise missiles, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, cruise missiles. Ballistic ballistic
Mm-hmm.
missiles. Missiles.
Yeah.
Missiles. Yeah. Ballistic missiles. Uh, and uh, mentioned Shaheds, and another reason for air alert is MiG 31. Like it's an aircraft that Russians.
Really? They
Uh,
still use those?
yeah, MiG 31. It's actually carries aeroballistic uh, missile.
Mm.
It's named Kinjal. It translated to English as dagger. So like MiG 31 is like first step of its path. So it's serves as a booster.
Hmm.
It like speeds it up. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, Shahed air raids is kind of safe-ish, I'd say, for citizens, because as I have mentioned, our air defense are really good at hitting them right now. But those raids happen pretty much every night right now. Starting from August, they send like up to 100 this shit to our skies, and yeah, uh, when they are getting hit on top like of Kyiv in the Kyiv skies, you can hear like explosions. Sometimes they are kind of loud and scary, you know, especially when you are sleeping peacefully and then you hear that something blew up. Yeah, not a pleasant feeling to wake up to this, but you know, we have what we have. When it comes to cruise missiles air raids, they are actually different because yeah, they are a lot more dangerous, and we are notified beforehand that Tu-95, the aircraft that carries these rockets, are in the sky somewhere in Russia. Commonly, they are like above the Caspian Sea. Uh, that is where they, you know, launch these
Hmm.
missiles, and the ETA of these missiles is calculated by our like people who type in these channels. And during these air raids, it is strongly advised to proceed to the shelter, to not stay at home. So, like, two walls is not really a safe option in case of these missiles. Uh, well, basically because air raids has much less success rates with those targets, and the main issue that they are being hit, uh, being shot at, before they hit their target. So like the only way to hit a cruise missile is when it slows in her movement, in its movement, because they are getting slow right before they're hitting their target that was programmed into this missile. So like in that particular moment, it's actually an opportunity to shoot down this missile, and falling debris is kind of dangerous too. We have a lot of casualties, a lot of fires that happen in like houses, and people get hurt just because fallen debris. So like the missile was hit, debris is causing some damage. Uh, when it comes to ballistic missiles, it's, you know, it's just pure luck, because no other air defense system is capable of hitting these targets. Well, except for the Patriot, but Patriots are in high deficit. They're very expensive, but they really work. So we have, I know that we have one or two Patriots in Kyiv, and what um, they are used only when something ballistic is coming. So that's for sure.
Hmm.
They are being severely like, sorry, yeah, they are being economized, like they're being severely saved because of their value.
Hmm.
And actually, you have only about 2-3 minutes in between air raid issue, siren sounding, and ballistic missiles hitting. So like you don't really have any time to hide. So just, you know, you may use two walls rule, but it's like pure luck. And for MiG 31A raids when the MiG is in the skies somewhere in Russia. Air raid is issued automatically for the whole country at once, like immediately. Even if it's like it's in disguise for training purposes or some other purposes, because there is no way to tell if there is a Kinjal missile equipped like this aeroballistic missile, and it happens for same reasons. No chance of defense against this shit, except for the battery. Well, and as you could have imagined, when the attack is massive, these attacks are always combined. So like first they will exhaust air defense systems with smaller and cheaper targets, and we will bring bigger stuff. So yeah. And actually after those attacks we do not have electricity for a couple days because they're hitting power plants, like the electro station.
How much of the
So
time do you have power?
right now it is constant. So like the last big attack was on August 24th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, just after our Independence Day, and we have had like this power outages, like this shutdowns, but like regulated shutdowns. It's called uh, rolling blackout, if I'm not mistaken. So like we call them віялове відключення, тобто це як віяло, it's like a fan, like
Yeah, the time that you have a blackout is rotating like a fan, and it'll be someone else or some other region later.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I'm lacking words of describing. So
you're good.
you got that perfectly right. So we know the time that we will have electricity on, and when we have like a local blackout. So we have even some app notification. They are not really correct sometimes, but you know the estimate is we're able to estimate the time. Like for example, if I come home from work, I know if there is an electricity on or if it's blacked out. And that happened after August 24th. It was like for a week or so. Maybe the damages were not that severe, and they were able to repair it fast. But after last very severe attack that happened in the beginning of summer, we have like a month and a half with these like local blackouts. And the maximum time that we have, so like we had 8 hours with electricity during the day, and the rest of the time were blacked out. So I've got myself some electro station, or like, how do I call it? So it's like mm, uh, like little power charger device. If I'm like, it uses the same batteries that phones use, but it's bigger. It weighs like 40 kilograms, and I'm able to use it like to work or watch TV uh, when the power is off.
Cool. Power banks.
Yeah, that's like a real big power bank, and actually, yeah, people who live in not in like uh, apartments, not in condos, who live in just like regular houses, they are able to use like generators, which which are fueled by gasoline, uh, like petrol or diesel, ones, and they get electricity in this way. In summer, it was popular to have solar panels, so like you were able to like purchase made up solution for you. So you can purchase some solar panels, generator, inventor, uh, inverter.
Converter.
I'm struggling to use English names for this, but you were able to purchase like 3-piece uh, system that may support you during power outages. So like if you have power at least for 6 hours a day, this system using power from sun and from the from this 6 hours or 8 hours of like uh, power that is supplied by wires.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of charge time.
yeah. So it is able to withstand for another 8 hours after this. So total, you are able to have 16 hours of power that, if you subtract 8 hours of sleep, it's actually may fulfill your needs in electricity, something like that.
Are those supplied to people, or do you have to buy them?
You have to buy them, and it's actually kind of a fruitful and like very very profitable business. Uh, a lot of people have invested in this, especially after 2022 when we first started to get these blackouts. People invested in this, and now when winter comes, the prices are just soaring, just unbelievable. Comparing to summer prices, they are just tripled or even quadrupled. So the stuff that I bought, I've spent like $800. Now it costs about 2,000. This big power bank stuff and other stuff that's related to fuel powered generators. They are even more expensive.
Hmm.
Yeah. So winter comes, we'll see how how we'll get by because right now Russians have been collecting a lot of stuff because the last attack, like the major attack, happened 2 months ago, and we are now preparing for you know something big. After which, for sure, there will be blackouts. They may be severe, and actually, we have first negative temperatures on the street right now. So, like in the morning, you can see some frost, and I think that they will wait for like a couple weeks till it gets really cold, and they will strike again.
Isn't a lot of heating in Ukraine from natural gas?
Um, we have like central heating systems.
Hmm.
They are not on yet, so we believe that they will be used. They won't be destroyed, and even if we won't be able to assess to use electricity power and electricity heaters, we will still have like water pipe systems that are fueled by gas or by coal. So we will have no power, but we will not freeze to death.
Mm.
If I'm not mistaken, a lot of pumps that are used in these stations are powered by electricity. So they should have some kind of solution in case of total blackout. Well, I have one solution. I have parents that uh, right now are in some kind of a village house, and they have a lot of firewood stocked. So yeah, if situation goes really bad here in city, the best option would be just to leave the city for a month or so, and just be in a house that has like uh, furnace which is fueled by firewood.
Mm.
That's it.
So it's that cold
I'm
in the
sorry for
city if
this
the
long,
power
long
is knocked out?
pauses. Yeah.
You're good.
Sorry, can you repeat this, please?
Yeah, so if you're in the city in the winter and your power is knocked out, like that's an issue that they can't really solve. So you would want to move out to the house out there and use the wood for heat? Or is it just for power in general?
Actually, we don't know right now. So like we are being promised that everything will be fine, and in case of like bad emergencies, if the damage to if the Russians will hit not only electrical power plants and like electricity stations in general, but they will hit uh, some heating stations as well. So we will have this like little points around the city, uh, like they are called points of unbreakability, or like so it's like a very loud name, like point of unbreakability, something like that. So it's like a just like a shelter when you can where you can have some water or hot tea. You can charge your phone. You can, if you freeze to death, you can heat yourself up. So like you can get warm in this place. But it's like it's in case of emergency, and if you have nothing at home.
Mm. How do you find
So
these
it's like
places?
we have a map of them in our phones, so I can like turn on my location or just look through the map and see where the nearest like this shelter, this point is, and I could just go there or drive there. It's kind of far.
Mm-hmm.
We actually use them a lot in summer, just to people just they go there and charge their phones, charge their power banks, laptops, etc. So just for these purposes, to get some electricity. But I believe that if we'll have like a really cold winter, and there will be problems in our heating systems, electricity systems, these points will be used a lot. So like I have an opportunity to leave the city if I need to, because I have where to go to my parents. A lot of people will not be able to do so.
Mm.
Can I ask a question from chat?
Yes, of course.
Who do you think is currently winning or losing?
Uh, my personal, are you interested in my personal opinion or like in overall
Yes.
general?
Your personal opinion.
My personal opinion is that we are losing right now. Like not really fast, but if you see this resource, it's called deep state map. It's like live live map that shows like the movements of Russian army and our army. So you'll be able to see. You can like time lapse it. You'll be able to see that Russians are advancing in almost every direction. Yeah. So plus we we hit them back. We have some kind of drones right now that are able to fly about 1,000 kilometers. We hit different plants on Russian's territory, but uh, it is very small. It's like a little chip away damage compared to the overall infrastructure that they have. So like I'm trying to be realistic. Of course, I understand the the power of the enemy, and I do not underestimate the courage of people that are fighting right now. But overall, combining all the problems that we have inside the country, actually the war showed that we have a lot of them, a fucking lot of them, especially related to corruption and to like poor chain of command in the military forces, because we have a lot of mm, a lot of generals, a lot of high military positions occupied by old Soviet people that have no experience in fighting. And you know, we have this saying in Ukraine that if we fight like a Soviet army against Russians, which are Soviet army too, so like big, bigger Soviet army will always win against little Soviet army.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to make some difference, to have a chance of winning, we need to restructure our forces. We need to rethink, reinvent the ways of war waging, because yeah, well, actually, there are young people of my generation that have been, implementing some new decisions. It comes to first-person view drones. Of course, you hear a lot about them because they only the only force that still, keeps us afloat. It like gives us power to fight back. Because if there were no drones of this kind, we would have lost a long time ago. That that's what I think.
Mhm.
And actually, Neuro, if you remember, when we were speaking previously, you told me that I am an int character. So uh, STR characters are fighting right now, and I am an int character.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I cannot share a lot of details, but I have like two jobs right now, my previous one and the new one. And as an int character, I can make a difference too. So like I am participating in some kind of stuff as well, and it's
Cool.
been kind of fruitful, and I'm really glad that I can make my own implement to this,
Cool.
like my own little contribution to all the stuff that happens.
Mhm.
Yep.
So yeah,
PhD is very high int. That's like using D&D stats like 18 int or 19 int in a particular domain. So being able to leverage that for the team is important, but it takes a lot of reading to be able to get that specialized and to have those skills. You have to read a lot of words. So strength people doing strength stuff, you get to do your int stuff and write some crazy wizard scroll that's going to help somebody out.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Actually, it takes a lot of work in in the lab, but it is worth it.
Mm-hmm. And you said part of the reason you wanted to chat was the connection with the U.S. support and how your media has been talking about our election and if that's going
Yeah.
to impact the support that you're getting. What is people's vibe like? What do they think is going to happen?
Well, first of all, I can say that from Ukrainian point of view, Trump is severely demonized, especially in mass media. You know, like I have mentioned, people believe that if Trump wins, we are just fucked, like immediately. But you know, my personal opinion that is not true. And actually, there are like some respected warriors that have their own channels and they are able to spread their thoughts among like people like me, who are veterans that have their own opinions too. And actually, they believe that Republicans are better for us. So like if Republicans win, like in this election, they believe that there will be, some change, because they say that with the Democrats, everything will be pretty much the same for us. So like the situation will not change at all. We will continue to slowly losing, or maybe there will be some kind of peace agreement on bad terms for us. So like the loss of our territory is unavoidable if Democrats win. But yeah, they believe that Republicans can make a change, and their main like argument in this is that in 2014, when Crimea annexation happened, uh, there was almost like zero condemned and zero repercussions for Russia during to these events. So like the world just slept on this stuff. And they say that Obama actually he cut all the military aid, like everything. So even ammunition for rifles, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and they mentioned that during Trump times we were getting first significant military aid. Yeah. So like uh, if Trump gets elected, everything can happen. So we either lose pretty fast or we'll have a chance to strike back. Yeah, that's one of the opinions. But overall, you know, people expect Harris to win. Not expect, but I'd say they hope,
Mm-hmm.
because it is being spread by our news, our mass media.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what the odds are of Harris or Trump winning? Is it still 50-50 or close to
Yeah,
it?
pretty much. The polls have been getting closer the past couple weeks. Harris was ahead a little bit coming out of the debates, but at this point, the advantage has pretty much dissipated. So, yeah, everybody's describing it as a coin flip election.
And what does the president actually control when it comes to our current aid approach?
Well, the president has a lot of discretion in terms of who they send weapons and supplies to. But that said, Congress actually has supreme authority on that matter. So Trump famously was pretty skeptical about, adventures abroad and whatnot, with the exception of, Iran, obviously. Uh, and it kind of fell to Congress to force his hand and to try to maintain those existing relationships. So Congress could be the spoiler here if Trump wins and actually does try to make dramatic changes to American foreign policy. So that's one possible outcome there. But that said, one of the expectations going forward for the Republican Party is that it's going to become more Trumpified, so to speak, over time. So the Republican Party that existed when Trump was president still had a lot of traditional Republican conservatives in it. But those guys increasingly have been crowded out by pro Trump Republicans. And there's going to be, if that is an accurate characterization of the change happening, there's going to be less resistance in the future from Republican senators and House reps to Donald Trump's impulses, let's call them, to his intentions to change American foreign policy, among other things. So, on the one hand, yeah, President has broad authority. Congress could, but Congress does have the capacity to clip his wings, but the willingness to use that capacity may be curtailed depending on how much power the Republicans in the future have in the Senate and House.
How do we, I guess, make those decisions to aid a country in a war, and how much? Like, does Congress write up a bill or something of like, okay, we're going to send them this much and establish this relationship? How is that done?
So it depends on the program. In general, well, it kind of depends too, because what Congress can do is they can actually write legislation creating a program, an aid program to a specific country, and that outlines in great detail what the money can be spent on and what it can't be spent on, and gives the executive branch very specific instructions as to how to do all that. On the other hand, they can write up legislation that is much more open-ended, that gives the executive broad discretion in how the money is used and who gets it. And so, how any given aid package is used depends on, how that underlying legislation is written. So in the case of Ukraine, a lot of the aid that's been sent has been sent as part of bills that have been passed in Congress specifically to aid Ukraine. So the money is narrowly meant to go to Ukraine for the purpose of helping it defend itself. And the presidency does not have much discretion in terms of how that's used. So, for example, even if the president doesn't want to do that, that is to say, doesn't want to aid Ukraine or continue to aid Ukraine, because Congress has the ultimate authority over that, his hand is kind of forced and he ultimately has to send that aid. Now, there are things presidents can do to try to inhibit the flow of aid. There's legal things they can do to try to slow down the process. They can find excuses not to send this, that, or the other thing. There's a number of administrative type tactics that are available to a president that doesn't want to do something that Congress is trying to force him to do. But in general, and I think there's even been Supreme Court rulings on this, the president does have to respect the writ of the law as written by Congress. That could change with the current sitting Supreme Court, because a lot of the guys currently, specifically the conservative justices on the Supreme Court, are veterans of sort of the 70s school of law that stipulates that the president should have more, not less, discretion, and that Congress's ability to force his hand should not be boundless, basically. And that came out of debates about the Nixon administration and the degree to which they were either abusing their power or, just using it within the bounds of the law. There was a lot of debate about that, and a lot of conservative justices generally sided with Nixon on that. Ultimately, they lost that battle, and there were a number of measures that were implemented to try to curtail the power of the presidency and inhibit the president's discretion. But there's kind of been a long-running mission among partisans of that era to try to reverse those changes. And now some of those guys are on the Supreme Court, and they have a majority. So it could be that if the president wanted, he could force a battle with Congress that resulted in a case over this specific issue appearing before the Supreme Court, and it could be that the Supreme Court actually changes precedent again, which of course they've already done on other issues. And that could result in Congress's ultimate authority on things like aid to Ukraine being curtailed, in which case a potentially newly empowered Trump administration may actually be able to unilaterally end aid to Ukraine. So that's hypothetical, though. That just depends entirely on how sort of the law side of things work out. I haven't heard anybody talking about that as a likelihood. So, that's probably not going to happen, I would guess. But, if Trump wins, there's really no telling what will happen. Like, the whole thing about Trump is that he's very unpredictable. He's a wild card. So, even professional analysts have a lot of difficulty kind of forecasting what kind of impact his reelection would have on things like aid to Ukraine, but also on just rule of law in the United States generally. That's kind of a whole topic of conversation unto itself.
What is the current state of Congress's support for aid? Because if they decided what the initial support level was going to be, is that renewed at some point? And how many people have been on board for ratifying that?
So at the start of the war, there was broad-based support. It kind of waxed and waned over time, but in general, the bulk of Congress was still in favor of further aid. And specifically, the way that they did the aid bills is that they passed them such that they were annual, effectively. So they would last for the whole year, and then they would have to be renewed later. And that was done partly to mitigate the risk of a significant change in the composition of Congress. They didn't want there to be like a big change after a midterm election or whatever, as was the threat in like November 22. They didn't want that to potentially significantly inhibit aid to Ukraine in the short run. So they designed the aid bill to kind of overlap and extend beyond the midterm election. But that still left renewal. There was still the possibility that new actors could upset that status quo, and that's eventually what happened. Donald Trump famously came out and said that he opposed further aid to Ukraine, and that resulted in a prolonged, months-long political battle over the renewal of a new aid bill to Ukraine. I'm sure Ukrainians remember it well. It was headline news for a long time. So, that was 22, 23. Going forward, again, there's so much uncertainty as to what the new Congress will look like after the election and just what Donald Trump is going to do. But that said, in general, it seems like support in Congress is there for further aid, but that it's highly conditional on pressure from Trump. Obviously Democrats are universally for it in general, just because at this point it's a partisan issue. But for Republicans, I think most Republicans in Congress would prefer to continue aid to Ukraine. But as they showed before, when Trump announced that he was against it, that support is very mercenary. And so it's basically just unreliable and cannot be counted upon with any confidence. So it's really going to come down to Trump, I think. If he does win office, or maybe even if he doesn't, since he's still going to carry a lot of political pull, if he comes out very explicitly and says that he just wants to shut it down, I think it would be very difficult to continue to pass those kinds of aid bills. If Democrats maintain control of the Senate and House, they could hypothetically use the legislature's constitutional power to force the executive's hand, with the caveats previously mentioned. But if it's split, with the GOP controlling one house and then the Democrats the other, or especially if the GOP controls both, then it's just going to come down to the decision of one man. I think there's less and less willingness by Republican politicians to kind of vote on principle and stand up against things that Trump wants to do that they don't like. They increasingly just fall in line behind what he wants. And again, without being able to predict what he wants, like, we can't say for sure just like what the prospects are for continued aid. It's a total crapshoot.
Mm-hmm. Dim.
Yeah, so like Trump is a real wild card, as you have said.
Yeah. When we vote in November, are we voting for president and also for legislature, or just president?
Everything.
Okay, everything. So a lot of stuff can shift around.
Yeah. Congress, state Congress, local elections, it all gets jammed into the same ballot.
I saw a great sign outside. It said, "Vote, think for yourself." And it was a purple fist. So it was neither blue nor red. It was good. Don't forget to vote. And vote local too. Use your best judgment. What do you think of Zelenskyy? Like, what is the opinion of his leadership so far?
Well, like common, so like, Ukrainians are very good at complaining. That's what I can assure you. Yeah. So like we elected every other president that we had, and then we condemned every other president that we had. So like at the start of the war, Zelenskyy seemed like the greatest leader that we ever had. And nowadays we see that, he has a lot of issues because he doesn't know a lot of stuff. like what can one person really do? He is really good at speaking with people, and he's really good at, outside of Ukraine politics. So like his trips, his meetings with different world leaders, his like the plan of victory, which is, we consider it almost impossible to fulfill, but it still exists, and we see that he is creating like a very nice picture of Ukrainian resilience, etc. But the amount of inside of country problems is enormous. We have like a lot of issues I have mentioned in military chain of command. We have generals that are known as butchers. Yeah, so they send a lot of people. We call it like meat grinder attacks. So like the attack that uh, almost surely will end up in a lot of people, a lot of losses.
Mhm.
And it's obvious that in our situation, people is the amount of people of trained people is the most valuable resource that we have. And these commanders, these generals that were, like giving such orders, they are not punished properly. They are either promoted even higher. That happened a lot of times, or they are just, when the society like points at this issue, it is being spoken of in media. These people, they just, go on their pension and continue with their peaceful life, just, out of the military. And actually, we see that a lot of issues are happening, and the only way to force our authorities, our government to like notice them, to take some kind of action, is to like point at them. So the whole society starts to say that this is bad, this is not good. We start to uh, like ask our government to like point their attention to some stuff,
Mhm.
and kind of, it's very hard to implement, but like the system is very rusty. And then we are being promised that this issue will be addressed. Everything calms down, the media like forgets about some kind of event, and that's all. Like it's being covered in dust somewhere on the shelf. No one remembers about it. So like you, not only as a society we have to point out some problems to our authorities, but we have to uh, like check if they have done something about it. We have to like go back like 2 or 3 months when some events were happening, and we have to check and ask, did you do something with this, did you do something with that? And we have a lot of stuff declared. For example, one of the biggest uh, events, like situations that were covered in media, that by the start of this winter 2024, we'll have an additional 1 gigawatt of power built. So we'll have a lot of electricity. And like when it comes to actually, it was declared, I guess, in the beginning of summer, something like that. And when it comes to like showing actual results, we see that not even half of this were built, and winter is 1 month ahead of us. So like a lot of stuff that sounds like very proud. They say it very loudly. So like we'll do this, we'll do that, everything will be fine. Actually, when it comes to the real action, if there is at least like 30% done, it is already really good. So yeah, internal issues are, you know, they have their toll at us, because not a lot have changed in like local governments since the Yanukovych times, since like previous of 2020 of 20th of 2014. So we had our like army was devastated and destroyed and defunded. We have a lot of areas of social life, of economic stuff that people just were stealing. They were corrupted, and the overall government has changed. President has been changed, but these people are locally still on their places, and they continue to do the same stuff that they have been doing for the past like 15 years, and they continue to bribe, they continue to give money to someone just so people would close their eyes. This Soviet mentality is still very deeply uh, like rooted in our society, and it's like for me or a person of a newer generation, it's really sad to witness, because when we hear about the amounts of money that has been stolen, we just understand like how many drones, FPV drones, you
Mhm.
could have bought for this money, or how many people just like
Houses you could
nowadays
rebuild.
during the war times. Yeah, nowadays during war times, the more money you spend on preparations, on equipment, the more the bigger the chance that you will survive. So, and having to understand that all that money has been stolen, maybe could have saved someone's life, just devastating for like young citizen as me. Yeah, but as they say, you cannot choose your homeland.
Are there people who are trying to fight against the corruption in some way?
Yes, of course, we have a lot of people. We have a lot of independent, journalists that are being chased around the country. Current, for example, we have this like the main issue. Yeah, so I can give an example of this. The mayor of the city, which is named Dnipro, one of the bigger cities in Ukraine, uh, its name is Dnipro. So the mayor of the city has Russian passport. He has been trying to hide it, but we have people that conducted some kind of investigation. They have real proof that he has uh, Russian ID, and you know he maybe doesn't show his Russian affection right now, but you know we call these people like uh, like preservatives or canned food, so they can be opened later when Russia comes here. And these people that were in our current government, they will show their true colors, that they actually Russian supporters, and they will be present during the like Russian government stuff if Russia wins the war and occupies the whole country. So yeah, these people like we call them waiters or cans, like I mean in like canned food, so the
Mm-hmm.
food that you will be able to use later. And we have like a direct proof that the mayor of the city is this like waiter that has Russian connection, etc., etc. And still he is a mayor of the city. So like nothing can be done about this. Something like that. And we have a lot of rats in our system with Soviet roots, and we have a lot of greedy people that steal, because it seems like when a person gets their hands, uh, his hands on some amount of money, this person becomes insane, absolutely blinded by greed, and I have no other explanation about these processes, because, as I have said, the amounts of money being stolen, it's just enormous, like millions of dollars for some like little person that works at the local hospital that is, and this person is able to like give other people disabled person status, so you will avoid like military service.
Mm-hmm. Kind of makes me wonder how corruption is weeded out on a psychological level, because you're talking about the norms of Soviet culture, which was in the military or in institutions. If you bribe someone and get passed, that's like a normal accepted thing where they see that as a winning move. The person who got paid off, they just scored some money, and the person who passed through, they won because they got to pass through the situation as they desired. It seems like it's
Well, the
hard to.
process,
Go ahead.
yeah, I completely understood what you mean. Yeah, before like 2014 and during other times, like before this, it was just as you have described it. So like it was considered a win-win situation. But
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, and it's really, it warms my heart that a lot of people, they are trying to rethink the situation, because they start to, acknowledge the fact that everything, every process that is is being like conducted on a higher level is starting somewhere here on like a smaller level, or lower level.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you bribe someone uh, for paper that states that you are able to drive a vehicle, but you actually didn't appoint a doctor, maybe you're a crazy person or you can't see really well, so you'll be able to drive a vehicle having this little paper that states that you are completely healthy, but in reality it is not, and you like go on the street with your car and you hit someone. Like it all happens from really like small and little basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays people are at least from my circle, they are trying to end this shit. And actually, I can give you an example what like happened to me when I was trying to get a driver's license. Well, you should take some lessons beforehand with some kind of instructor, and then you have to pass a lot of tests, like the theory tests and then practice tests. So when I started to attend those lessons, like I had 2 lessons, maybe 2 or 3 lessons, and then my instructor says, like, if you want to have a license right now, like easy, just pay such amount, like a certain amount, and it will be done. You won't have to worry about it. So I rejected this shit. Well, uh, but you know, if you reject their uh, their offer, they say that you won't be able to pass these tests like legally. So they won't let you.
Weird.
Yeah. So
They want you to
they
pay a
force.
higher fee
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
skip the
Yeah. Right.
test rather than do the test normally.
They force you to pay, because there is they they picture it like this, like the only option that you will get your license, because if you want to do it yourself, if you want to do it legally, they just won't let you. you will fail the test.
That makes no sense to make the driving test so hard that no normal person could pass it. Was this some
The test is
elite
not
wizard
hard. The test
test?
is the same.
Yeah.
They will just, they will just put like the instructor that watches you passing the test. He'll just, write that you haven't passed. That's
Just
it.
give you a bad grade just because you can.
Yeah, right. So it's like just just the person's decision. But nowadays we have a lot of safety stuff against this. So we have a lot of people that are Soviet minded that are trying to bribe, trying to do such things as I have described, and we have people that try to fight this. And now we have like different cameras. Uh, if you if you if you try to pass the practice test, you will have like two cameras in your car. You'll have the camera that films you. You'll have the camera that films your instructor that is being in the car with you. You'll have like the whole process filmed. So someone independent from outside of this organization will be able to like look through these files and decide whether you have passed the test or not. And as you could have imagined, uh, people can find other ways of cheating on this test, but still, the rate of such violent corruption like events it have decreased. And yeah, so like in general, we are going in the right direction. But this path is very, very hard and slippery and rocky, and I don't know. It just seems like we'll be able to become a real like strong independent democratic country when all the some Soviet minded people just die. So like it just takes time when they get old and they just just go away.
Yeah, those norms would pass on with them, and you would have your more modern take on how things should be done. The phrase that Agent Smith uses a lot during our segment is the people's faith in institutions and your ability to follow rules and think that rules are there for everyone's benefit. Because a lot of these moves are breaking rules for two people's benefit rather than the group cohesion of creating a structure where everyone abides the law and everyone follows the proper channels for getting their training, getting their promotions, and so on, rather than making backroom deals to advance themselves in some way. I can see the difficulty with the military, like you mentioned, of them getting potentially rewarded if they technically win a battle, but if they don't really treat their soldiers well and, using a gaming term, conserve their units because they can't afford to take trades, like you're saying, Soviet army style, just because you have fewer people in your country overall. So that strategy is not going to work. You have to keep people alive and keep the specialties that they have, the training of what they can build and what they can operate and do, keep them intact and taken care of, because you have a defensive strategy here of trying to protect your country.
I'm glad that I have been able to, speak clearly and you completely understand what I've said.
Yeah, your English is good.
Yeah, thanks. I don't think so, but I have to I have to keep practicing.
Well, your English is amazing. In other languages, I can only tell someone that they're good looking and find the restroom. That's about as far as I get. So for you to carry a conversation about multiple years of history and reference multiple different kinds of military weaponry and all this other stuff, you've got good English. Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I've been preparing for this conversation, so I have to look up a lot of stuff, but and I still have a translator opened.
So you do all of your work and stuff day to day in Ukrainian. You don't really talk to people in English much.
Well, actually, to be honest, I speak in Russian because, well, especially in my family, because I don't know if you remember, I've mentioned that I was born in the Donetsk
Mm-hmm.
So like if you open the map, or so like it would be easier for people in
Yeah, yeah.
USA to understand what I mentioned. So I was born in the region that is now occupied from 2014. So I had to move. I when I finished when I finished school and entered my university, I had to leave my like little homeland, my house, and go to Kyiv, the capital, to enter the university because of like this shit with Russian invasion has begun in 2014. Yeah, and actually I attended Russian school, so like in Donetsk there were no people that were speaking Ukrainian at all. So like from Soviet times, it yeah it has like this kind of influence. We even had like Ukrainian language in school, like a subject, and Russian language, Russian literature, and Ukrainian literature. So we were studying Russian as on the same level as Ukrainian, and Ukrainian was considered, like official country language. We had to speak it during our Ukrainian lessons. We had like documents and other stuff, like all related to like all the legal stuff that happened in our everyday lives were in Ukrainian. But overall, like everyday life, like just everything was in Russian. So still to this day, I speak with my parents in Russian, with my wife, and actually a lot of people do so here in Kyiv, even now. But overall, I have started using Ukrainian a lot much more, especially when speaking to strangers. A lot of people decided to switch, like completely switch, just forget about Russian. Well, we tried to, but actually it didn't work out for us. So yeah, I think in Russian. I speak to myself in Russian when I have to. Uh, Ukrainian for me is like not a language of everyday life, but a language of science, language of poetry, of literature, language of official conversations with my colleagues, etc. Yeah, so like in my everyday life, I am completely bilingual, Russian and Ukrainian.
Hmm.
Did not know that. So I have the map here of the Donetsk region, so pretty far to the east, and I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Um,
if you zoom in, you'll be able to find little city that is called Makiivka. That is my yeah. Zoom in a little bit more. It's right near the Donetsk.
it's Marinka.
Yeah, not Makiivka. Zoom in a little bit more. Oh yeah, now you see it.
Hmm.
Donetsk Oblast, and right at the right of the red letters,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Makiivka. Yeah, now you see it. So yeah, that is where I was born, and I've spent there 16 years of my life, and then I had to
Hmm.
move to Kyiv.
And you moved to Kyiv for your PhD, or was it for the war?
It was in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished school, so I moved for my bachelor's degree
Mm.
to Kyiv. So I was 17.
Cool. Have you been sleeping better? Like you're more relaxed than when we first talked.
Yeah, actually, I've kind of adapted to all this stuff. Even when the air raids, is issued, just you know tend to ignore it if it's not really dangerous, because uh, you have work in the morning, you have a lot of stuff. I still visit gym once in a while, so like I need to recover somehow. So I have no other option. Like I cannot, go to the shelter every time the sirens are sounding.
Mm-hmm.
I just won't be able to, continue living the next day because I haven't slept.
That makes sense.
So and it's actually like for every Ukrainian right now, I guess. So if the danger is like negligible, it is just ignored. If the danger is, significant,
Mm-hmm.
some people ignore just everything. They do not care. They say, if I'm getting hit, then so be it.
Mm-hmm. Question from me. Uh, since you speak Russian and likely had Russian speaking friends, were there any friendships that you had with people in Russia that were affected by the war? Like, how is that whole vibe?
Well, I still have a friend of mine. Uh, it is my chemistry teacher. We met when I was in school still. It was like before 2014. Uh, and he's still in Makiivka, so he's still there. He's still working in my school, and we
Mm-hmm.
still, have some connection. He tells me that, well, you know, they have been funded really well because of this Russian policy that uh, they try to uh, like show to the new acquired territories that they are generous, they are rich, etc. So he has, a lot of stuff, a lot of new stuff for his like chemistry cabinet or class, a lot of new items, big TV screen, etc. So like, and he says that a lot of immigrants um, from Asia are brought there to make some renovations, to build roads. So they, try to make an impression that everything is thriving. But overall, that you know, it's obvious that it's only a picture. I do not have any friends from like 2014 Russia, like without this new territories as they name it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have grown with some people that in 2014 they decided to like take the other side, and they even went as volunteers uh, to wage a war against Ukraine in 2014. I have
Really?
two, yeah, I have two classmates that are dead right now because of these events. So they went like like volunteers to support the like rebellions. Uh, yeah, they fought against Ukraine and they were killed. And I have my own grandmother who is still there with her husband, and we do not speak at all because he and she like so they are on the opposite side, if I can say it
Mm-hmm.
softly. So they say that we are fascists, we are Nazi.
Hmm.
So they have been completely overtaken by propaganda. They watch TV all the time, and they are happy that we are getting shelled, etc.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is life.
Yeah, one of the kind of jokes that was a counter to that accusation that we heard about in the U.S. was that Zelenskyy is part Jewish, so it wouldn't really make sense if Ukraine was
Yeah,
actually a Nazi actor.
Russian says Russians. Lavrov, if I'm not mistaken, his last name is the Minister of Foreign uh, Stuff, Russia. He says that Hitler was Jewish too, so it doesn't matter.
It's interesting how propaganda, you can kind of say whatever you want if you control the channels, and Russia has a pretty clear stranglehold on creating a single narrative for what's going on. There isn't like a 50-50 split in being pro-war or being anti-war. Obviously, there are probably lots of people within Russia who are anti-war, but they're not going to be elevated on TV and on the radio, and they're not going to be given power. They're going to be shut up in some way. So it's pretty pretty rough trying to see what the truth is, and seeing that people who used to be cool with each other are enemies now really sucks.
Yeah, that is actually what has been happening for like past 10 years of my life. But I know that there are people in Russia who are against this. A lot of people have fled Russia as well. A lot of cultural like activists or songwriters, musicians, they support Ukraine, even though they are fully Russian. They have to immigrate, but they are standing by their beliefs, their principles. So that is, that gives us some hope.
Mm-hmm.
Not every Russian is, supports this.
Yeah, certainly not. I knew a couple artists who moved out of Russia just because they didn't want to get drafted and they didn't support it. So most people, I would guess, are just normal internet folks like everybody else who wants to live and let live. But we have these people with powers over governments and militaries that want to change the lines on the maps, which it seems like a really petty thing when you think about the human cost involved in what it takes to fight over territory and then like re-administer stuff. Like they're throwing down more than double money if you're shelling an area and then funding it to be rebuilt. Like that's a huge sink of resources that you've just lost to change the line on the map. And the picture you're mentioning here of maybe they fund different institutions really well, like the areas that Russia takes over, they might fund them really well right now to create an impression, but they're not obligated to take good care of them for a long period of time. Like it's sort of a honeymoon phase for the people who maybe wanted to be under a Russian administration, and then people who didn't really have much of a say. But how that pans out over the long term, they don't know.
You're absolutely right. Actually, talking about propaganda, I can also give you an example. The company that I work right now, it is it was evacuated in 22 from now occupied region of Luhansk Oblast. Like the city is named Rubizhne. You can see it on the map if you want, but it's not really important. It is higher than that. You need to go like near Severodonetsk. Yeah, now you're getting close. So like the company I work right now, it was, yeah, you can see Rubizhne right now, right about Severodonetsk. So this region is occupied right now, and my company that I work in, it was, they had a big production, like manufacturing site there. They had a big new laboratory building that was, only put into use, implemented in the end of 2021. So they were able to, work for 2 months, and then the war started. And actually, when Russians came to this, to these facilities, they have discovered different drugs and meds that were developed by this company. I work in pharmaceutical company, just to clarify. And they have brought propaganda newsmakers there. They were walking among the ruins of this facility, and they were like finding different flasks and different vials of like different solutions of drugs that had English letters on these bottles, and they said that it was an American laboratory, a biolaboratory, and they developed like gene modified stuff here. You can see that it was all true. The whole invasion was completely right. We did this to protect our Slavic nation from America's bad influence, because you can see the live evidence of a biolaboratory, etc. So it's just crazy for me as a person who like works in this facility. My father worked in this facility. I know that they were like just making just regular, usual drug development. Just you want to invent new some new pills, etc. And they had this clinical laboratory, and like standard solutions and samples were sent from reference laboratory that is in USA. Like it's just a way of things to do. So like you order US pharmacopoeia standards, like reference compounds to your research. Just a way of things to do. Everybody does this in Europe, maybe even in Russia. At least they did before the invasion.
Hmm.
And they decided to turn it into a propagandic like piece of information. And actually the most scary thing about this, the people in Russia actually believed that it was a biolaboratory, and some like gene modified soldiers were raised in this facility, etc., etc.
So like comic book shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so they have
they
their
yeah
stories
they
to justify stuff.
of course they talk about gene modified mosquitoes, gene modified geese, different kind of animals that are used against the great Slavic nation.
They needed to invade you because they were worried about your cyber geese.
Yeah, that is actually completely serious piece of information that they spread among like Russian people.
Mm-hmm.
So they invaded, they found this facility, and they decided that it is a good opportunity to justify their invasion, just to show like you know you see we were right. They're working with Americans. They're trying to invade us and kill us. So we had to invade first.
Mm-hmm. The old preemptive attack.
Yeah.
I've heard of that move before, but they're actually like trying to acquire territory and keep it, I guess. Is there any sense of, is Russia going to push to a certain point and then be done, or do they just want the whole thing and they're waiting until Ukraine taps?
Well, common thought among the people that I speak with is that they have no other like purpose, because they have switched their economy to a military state. So to like to survive, to keep thriving, as they boast about that they have an enormous economic growth, etc., etc. It's all related to like war economy production. So they need to keep using their newly built facilities and plants to produce more and more like mentioned drones, tanks, shells, a lot of chemical stuff that like explosive, etc. So like it was after the Cold War, if I'm not mistaken, Soviet plants that produced shells and ammunition. They had to switch to producing like aluminum cans just to use these facilities and plants somehow, so they wouldn't, just like stay without any purpose. So for us, it seems like the only way for Russia to keep existing in the current state is to continue war in every possible way.
Because their economy is morphing to want to grow with that aim in mind. So the industry that is rising and the business that people are getting is for this project. And if the war ends, then all those things go out of business. So they're reliant on it continuing.
Yeah, absolutely right. I love the way that I, try to say something of my mind, and then you put it like in very elegant two sentenced English that actually perfectly describes my thoughts.
That's why I'm here. I'm not the history guy. That's Agent Smith. I'm the summary guy. Well, thank you so much for talking through stuff with us and giving us a big picture. What do you hope for, I guess? You've talked about what you think is going to happen.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been a blast to speak with you, to speak to some, to polish off my English skills a little bit. Well, I thought that it would be harder for me, but I'm really, just pure joy for me. Thanks a lot. If you
Hell
want to
yeah.
have me again, anytime. So yeah, and about my hopes, that is a hard and controversial question. So on the other hand, of course, I want this shit to end as fast as possible, so I could, like sleep peacefully and work out, and just, have some plans for future. Maybe to go abroad someday, because, as you know, we are not allowed to leave the country. Uh, well, I dream of visiting America once, maybe seeing you in person. Well, I hope that that happens someday. On the other hand, uh, I understand that if war ends fast, it means that we will suffer some territory losses. So for me, it would mean that my homeland, my little like homeland where I was born, will be like forever captured, and maybe in some time even internationally acknowledged as a Russia. So I still have like a condo there, a garage for the car. Uh, yeah, I wanted to visit at least, just to walk the streets that I like of my childhood, see those buildings again. I hope that it might happen someday too. Well, so yeah. On the other hand, I want the war to end as fast as possible. On the other hand, I don't really want to, acknowledge the fact that my homeland is unreachable anymore.
Mm-hmm. When's the last time you were there?
Yeah. I was there in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in 2017. So, like, it was not acknowledged by Russia. It was called like Donetsk People Republic, just like a rebellion region. And actually, you could. They had a. How to say? So you could go there if you were able to prove that you have registration. So I carried my passport, old Ukrainian passport, with me. So like since 2014, they weren't issuing any Ukrainian documents. So like they started to produce new Donetsk people republic documents, which are not, acknowledged in any country. Yeah, so I had to carry my old passport and show that I really am registered in such apartment on such street. So I would be able to pass all the posts of the military posts and enter this region. And they had like their patrols there, a lot of. They had a curfew when I visited. So you uh, were like forced to carry ID and other stuff with you all the time. So like you could be stopped on the street by a patrol and prove that you are from this area.
Who were they looking
So
for
yeah,
when they were checking this?
I'm sorry, can you repeat, please?
Who are they looking for when they're checking everyone's ID? Like, what are they worried about?
Nothing. It's just like a routine for them. So like the patrol walks around the city, and if they find someone suspicious or some activities, or maybe just they didn't like the way that you look or something like that, they can ask your ID to be sure that you are like no harm for this particular region of some sort.
Someone in chat
So, yeah,
who said, as someone who listens to Ukraine latest UK podcasts, this has been a great to hear from a Ukrainian, more content like this.
Yeah.
Nice.
As I have said, you can have me anytime. So just, I'm really glad to share something about me, about my everyday life, to speak some English.
Well, it's great to hear from you, and it's very illuminating for an American and an English speaker who doesn't know a lot of the fundamental factors of your country and your culture and your language and the difference between speaking Russian and speaking Ukrainian and the ties between people over here and how friendships and families were impacted by the war. It's a very unique opportunity that you've given us to share a firsthand perspective, because most of the viewership is English speaking as the primary language, and that also limits what kind of news we can browse. So it's harder for us to kind of peer into Ukrainian media and know what you guys are talking about and how you're feeling about the big picture of things. For me, just as an American, I was kind of talking with my family about this on a trip recently. It seems like a no-brainer to want to stand up for Ukraine and to back you up. If there's an actor on the planet that's going to do some imperialistic shit and try to expand their borders through violence and just drive into territory and put a flag down and say that it's theirs, someone should stand up to that, in my opinion. And we're trying to dance with nukes and stuff and not escalate too much. But to me, it makes complete sense that we would want to back up your sovereign nation in whatever way we can. Obviously, that's made a little bit tangled by corruption issues where the money doesn't always necessarily get to where it should. But you're working on that, and that's something that the public is well aware of. So that's a battle that is yours to fight. And ours, I think, is to really question what is our role on the planet as Americans. We've done our fair share of imperialistic activity in trying to prop up countries and regimes and so on for our benefits and based on our principles. And it's a very straightforward thing that your country was attacked, so you deserve support of some kind. So I hope you feel heard at a minimum, being on and talking with us. I wish we could do more. But if it was happening to us, I'd be hella pissed. Like, that's a thing that people don't really internalize because they don't hear it in someone's voice of the stuff that you've been through. The difference in your voice from when you first talked to us and now is substantial. Like you feel a lot more together and calm, and you know what's going on, and you have lots of plans and contingencies for when things occur and what you're going to do, and you've already thought about it. So I feel like you've grown and matured a lot and become a more resilient person through this. So that's a benefit to you and everyone who's surviving this conflict. But I hope
Thanks a
for
lot.
maximum peace and victory for you.
Yeah. If you were able to see me, you'd see that I am smiling very widely and my face is red right now.
Good.
Thanks a lot.
We
Thanks a
appreciate
lot
your
for having me
taking.
for these kind words. Yeah, so anytime you want to speak with me, I'm up to.
Cool. We
Are we
might
wrapping up? Because I did have some questions lined up.
go ahead.
I have a lot of time, so if you want to proceed, I'm down for it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, whenever you're ready to go, just let us know. I don't want to force you to stay, but I kind of wanted
Force
to
me as
ask.
much as you want. I'm here.
Cool. Well, I wanted to ask about the Battle of Kyiv, because that's actually when we talked to you the first time. You were like in the middle of the city when the Russians were actually launching raids into the center of the city. So I was
Yeah.
going to ask, what was the follow up to that? Like, what happened in the city to you and your family after we talked that first time?
So like basically what happened is we tried to like get by to continue with our everyday life. We tried to like our like usual routine was to go into pharmacy queue because you know we had people in family with different conditions. We required specific meds, specific drugs, and during that time, all the supply chains were like cut or you know stopped for a little bit of time. So we had to go around the city, visit different pharmacies, check if like pharmacies, I mean drugstores, check if they are open, and then check if there is a medication that we require. Uh, so then we cooked some food, maybe like spent just some time outside. Like we didn't have really much to do. Just we played a lot of games, like board games. Uh, at that time, we were forced to cover our windows. Like it was so like no light will be seen at night. Uh, our authorities said that you know it can be used as a guiding point for uh, enemy, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
we had different uh, sabotage groups. Let me translate this, please. Sorry. Yeah, actually, the sabotage is right word. So like,
Saboteurs.
yeah, right. So we, had to be alert all the time, and I was living in a dorm, still, yeah, but by the time, and we had, different duty times, like we had a schedule who is on duty on which time, so who is not sleeping, who is sleeping, so we could stay alert, and in case of something happening we could wake up the others. So that what happening to us at the time when we were able to hear that the artillery or like shells exploding nearby. So like that was the time when the Russians, they were like 30 kilometers close to the city, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting news that some routes, some highways to Kiev are really dangerous because they are being shelled. So there was no way to leave the city for some people if that happened. And actually, as we have discovered later, we have three major bridges through the river Dnipro, like that connect, these bridges connect the left and the right brink of the city. So we were actually discovered, we were told, and we discovered later that these bridges could have been blown up if Russians got into the city. Yeah, so
By the Ukrainian army.
yeah, so it's like just a safety measure, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
So the occupation would not spread that fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so and river is really fast and really deep, so there won't be a way for the Russian troops to cross it without those bridges. So it's like it was a strategical point of of Kyiv defense. And then we had been alerted, and we have been told by authorities that a long curfew will be used like as a tool of getting of these saboteur groups. So we had curfew from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., just usual curfew, for example, and we were told that there will be a curfew that will be like 2 days long. So just usual citizens weren't allowed to leave their houses, their homes for 2 days, and we decided to, just to leave the city before this because it was like scary and a lot of bombing happened. Uh, if you remember, I mentioned the loudest explosion I heard in my life. It actually like 5 kilometers from my place. It
Mm-hmm.
happened. So yeah, it was really, really hard to sleep at night because of constant air raids and explosions. So we just decided to flee, to leave the Kyiv, and we've stayed in at my friend's house for a month, I guess. It was like near the Bila Cerkva. Yeah, Neuro is right now uh, browsing through the cities. So we left 70 kilometers to the south of to the south of Kyiv, to the little city named Kagarlik. It was right in front of Bila Cerkva. You're actually really really precise.
What's the name of the
Yeah,
city
now you
again?
can see it. Kagarlik. It's a little bit to the right.
Oh, Kaharlik. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, now you see it. So yeah, we spent like a month and a half there at my friend's place, and then when, as you remember, as you maybe remember, Russians fled Kiev. So like a lot of Kiev Oblast, like Kiev region were deoccupied, and we decided to go back to continue with our works and just continue with our everyday life. Plus, it is kind of inconvenient to had like 10 people living in 2 rooms. So like we had to sleep uh, on the floor. So we decided there were no need to continue our stay at my friend's place. So yeah, we just went back to Kiev, and since then I've been here.
Gotcha. So you're a pretty young guy, from what I gather, late 20s, right?
Yeah, I'm 28.
Gotcha. So when you were growing up as a kid in the aughts, before 2014, um, did you ever think that you would experience an actual conventional war?
Of course not.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to mention, we were informationally and culturally inseparable from Russia, if I can, like say
Mhm.
this. So we had Russian television on. We had a lot of comic shows, like and a lot of TV series, sitcoms, etc. that were produced in Russia, and we were just, for example, my family, we were consuming like 80% of this content, like not Ukrainian but Russian.
Hmm.
So just informationally and culturally, we were completely together. Like, and I had friends with Russia from Russia with whom I played Dota with. It was Dota 1. Yeah, and we started, to we entered this wonderful world. Yeah, but then times have changed.
Hmm. Yeah, the reason I ask is that there hasn't been a conventional war in Europe, obviously, since 1945. And especially speaking as an American, since we haven't had a conventional war here in the mainland United States since the 1860s. The idea of fighting an actual conventional war in the modern era still feels very strange. Even with all the conflicts the United States has fought over the past couple of decades, they've all been very unconventional, generally counterinsurgencies and that kind of thing. So I guess I wanted to kind of ask how it feels to actually be in a real conventional war. Like, is it surreal to go from growing up in such a peaceful environment to shifting into this?
Well, I can say that it's absolutely surreal because, when it first started, I was 17 in 2014, and it was just weird. But, I remember that I thought about this like just like a little conflict, little issue that that cannot go into full-scale war. Of course, 21st century democracy, like people's life is the most valuable thing that you can imagine, etc., etc. But when I was 17, I was focused on getting an education. I just finished school, so I did not really think about these events that much. Actually, mm, I want to admit that I even thought of this as an opportunity for me, because otherwise I would never leave my city. Would never go into this university in the capital. So I thought of this as an opportunity for me. So like, if these bad events had happened to me already, so I want to capitalize, to use them to my advantage, and to become stronger. Yeah, and even at the end of 2021, in January of 2022, when there were news about Russian troops like massing around Ukraine, like big numbers, a lot of armored vehicles, etc. It was, we had no belief that something like this would actually happen. We thought that, just an act of showing that they are big and important. I mean, Russians, that they are trying to fear us, to force us into making some decisions. But we never have a thought that they will actually invade. So, and when that happened, it was really shocking for a lot of people. Their lives just, like for me, nothing really changed much in terms of overall life. In terms of what I do, yes, there are some changes. In terms of my everyday life, like my sleep schedule, my work routine, etc. Yeah, there are some changes that are connected to air raids. But for people that had to flee their house again, like there are people that moved in 2014, like me, but then the places, for example, Kharkov, a city that is really, really close to the front line and that was shelled really heavily in the first months. So they had to flee in 2014 into Kharkiv, and then they had to flee in 2022 again.
Mm.
So like this seems to me like absolutely surreal, and people's lives had been butchered severely. a lot of people just flee the country overall. So, and they have no intention of returning. Well, it's actually very applicable for women, because women, they can cross the border, they can leave if they want. So I have a lot of like colleagues from the university, girls that aspire to achieve something more, and they just decided to leave, and they have entered different scientific programs in Canada, in USA, in Finland, in Switzerland. A lot of people, just spread around the world because of these events. So yeah, the impact of the war on everyday citizen life is undescribable, I'd say.
Yeah, I think this is an important point for people listening to think about, because speaking from the perspective of somebody growing up in the Western world, right? North America, Western Europe, we don't really know much about Eastern Europe. Like, probably what we've learned as a collective about Eastern Europe since the war in Ukraine started is the most anybody here has learned about Eastern Europe since the Cold War ended. Like, this is the most attention anybody has paid. And it's kind of been a crash course. And I think one of the problems that we have trying to learn about the region is that we tend to think of it as just being very poor. Like, when I think a lot of people in the US think about Eastern Europe, we think of the Balkans. And so we kind of think, well, it's conflict-ridden region. People are used to that. They expect conflict, etc. And they tend to kind of eschew the human cost a little bit. And I think it's important to remember that that's not an accurate representation of all of Eastern Europe. Even the Balkans in many cases. Like, the people living in Ukraine, like you just illustrated, had no expectation of this conflict and found it very alien when it happened. And so it's important to keep in mind just how shocking that shift was from peace to conventional warfare. It was totally unexpected, and it was extremely jarring. Would you agree?
Yes, of course, I would 100% agree with this. Especially like from people from my circle. Yeah, so even my parents, so like as they say to me, they try to, they work their whole life. They have a lot of stuff to sacrifice. They were not able to see the world. They had to save a lot so they could buy a flat or a condo for me or for my brother in our like native city in Makivka. But then it was occupied and we had to move. We were living as a family, like their house was in the Kharkiv region, in a smaller town, in a village. And they had, it was like our summer house, like we had to rebuild it a little bit, make it suitable for winter, and actually started to live there. Lived there for 8 years before 2022. And then again, so like this region now was occupied, my parents had to flee, and now this house is destroyed. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. So like everything that they have been working on their whole life, their savings, is just non-existent. So for them, it's absolutely devastating because, I consider myself like more or less young person, and I still believe that, I'm able to achieve something in life. So I try to think of these events as like, just an impulse for me to grow. But for them, it is absolutely devastating because they have nothing, and they are in their 60s right now. So they won't be able to rebuild something or to work on something, to get something in their life again. So yeah, they are just forced to continue their, existence
Mhm.
right beside us with me and my brother. Yeah, so that's how it actually, just for a prism, for a perspective of my family, how these events affected our lives.
So you were talking before about perceptions of the war in Ukraine. And one of sort of the hot topics among analysts is the manpower issue. And so, obviously you're not going to be like an expert in that, but I wanted to get your impression on this. Do you think the issues with Ukraine's army, as far as recruiting new people, does that have more to do with the draft office being reformed? Because Zelenskyy obviously famously fired all of the recruiters that were working for the government, which was immensely disruptive to the recruiting process. So, is that more the reason that there's a manpower issue, or is it really just that Ukraine is running out of people? And I would point out here that obviously people are leaving the country. You already mentioned that, both legally and illegally. But even controlling for that, what do you think would be the bigger factor here?
Well, I think, of course, the bigger factor is a very big lack of people that actually want to fight. Like, I believe that we have been able to withstand the first waves of the invasion because of motivated people, of volunteers that actually, wanted to fight for their country. But now they are veterans, and many of them are just, dead or injured, disabled. So in order to replace them, military offices have to recruit people that don't want to fight at all. So they're not motivated, and you know, it is considered like a punishment of some sort for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So they try to avoid military service at all costs, and yeah, so I guess that is the main issue right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it is being severed by the fact that I have mentioned a lot of corruption happens
Mm-hmm.
and poor chain of command. So if new recruits knew that they won't be forced to participate in a mid grinder attack, maybe if they knew that they will be valued as people, their lives will be valued, and everything will be rightful for them. So legally and after the war, they would be able to get some compensation, etc. So, and if all of this, uh, if all of this is clear, for new recruits, then maybe the situation would have been different. But we have what we have right now. Actually, there are some positive shifts in this direction. A lot of uh, new squads and troops are formed on a contract basis, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so if you sign a contract, you are almost guaranteed that you will have a good equipment. You will have at least 3 months of training. We have actually a lot of advertisement around the city of different squads and the troops that you can just call and get hired. People of different professions are needed, so you will not be stormtrooper. You can be a driver or maybe even a cook.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, there are a lot of professions in military service that can for people to be a part of. So
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to this contract service, it is guaranteed that you will be paid, you will be well trained, you will be equipped, and these troops and these squads, they are considered to be our elite. So even if you really want to join them, there is a kind of a filtration process, so you have to pass a lot of tests, and if you are like capable of doing some stuff, or you are physically available, then you are able to sign a contract. But that is a part of the whole system. That is actually like looks very similar to US Marine Corps. So like people with a real preparation, heavily prepared, trained. But we have this part of forces that consist of former just regular citizens that do not have any like well trainings and other stuff. So that happens too. And it's actually like a part of the ad campaign for these troops. So like, we guarantee that you will be trained. We guarantee that you will be equipped. So like, if you have to serve, you have to decide, and it's better to serve in our squad because you'll have less chances of dying, something like that.
So I don't know if you remember General Zelenskyy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about his firing. I can probably guess what your impression will be, but I wanted to ask you specifically so you would have a chance to kind of express your own opinion.
Well, I think the main issue is with him that he had a lot of controversies with Zelenskyy, and I guess the main breaking point of his career was the fact that he did not want to invade Kursk region. So he was against the fact that we tried to make a counterattack on Russian territory that was Russian before 2014. So from my point of view, and from point of view of a lot of people I know, it was a really bold and power move that maybe to later force some leverages, but it comes at a cost, because first of all, this Kursk invasion was conducted not perfectly. A lot of people losses were involved, and a lot of armored vehicle losses, especially
Equipment losses,
Bradleys and Abrams. Yeah, so the really quality machines that we actually need them to defend, they were used as an act of not for defense but for offense, and the offense is always more costly, costs a lot more than defense. And it led to the suffering of other regions at the front line. For example, maybe you've read that Russians have finally captured Ugledar. So it's closer to south. It was a really important point because it was like a vantage point. The city is located on top of the hill, and strategically it was really important to have it like a point of defense. But due to lack of people, lack of different armored vehicles and other resources, it was lost. And some people say that if we did not invade Kursk region, maybe we would have, defended against Russians in that area. So I guess that was the main, issue with Zaluzhny.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that before, so I find it very insightful. Yeah, the internal politics of Ukraine generally, but more specifically within the Ukrainian government, are not much covered in the Western press. They do receive some attention, but the whole conflict kind of is second page news at this point. I think everybody in the United States in particular is mostly focused on the election at this juncture for obvious reasons. Yeah, I never received like in the news here in the States like a clear reason for the divide between Zelenskyy and Zelenskyy. So thank you for giving us an actual reason.
It sounds like he wanted a purely defensive approach and to just protect what is already Ukrainian land, as opposed to think about trying to win the conflict with more aggressive tactics. Because if you go on an offensive and you attack within Russian territory, then that forces them to invest in defenses if they want to stay safe against attacks like that in the future. So you, even though you maybe expend more resources, you might also cause your opponent to have to invest more in defense and less in offense to maintain their footing. So it could have other benefits, but I guess in the purpose of morale, it seems like a more weak or suspicious stance to play purely defensive. It's more gung-ho, and there's more glory to it if you attack them as well.
It was very welcomed in our society. You know, it like felt like a little victory.
Mm-hmm.
It really rallied our spirits. But you know, it would be cost efficient only if it would be converted in some kind of real advantage later, because you know, like they say, one thing is to capture some land, the other thing is to like keep it, defend it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's actually amazes me the amount of interest that you show to like Ukraine. So it's just surprising for me, because you say that of course it's second page news, but you know, we are completely different country, and you still like speak about us. It warms my heart.
Well, I mean, it's kind of my bag, right? We're on the world discussion segment on a StarCraft 2 stream.
It is still a fairly visible issue, even for people who aren't news browsers. Like, Ukraine flags started popping up just around cities. I noticed it both when I was living in Seattle and also in LA here. Different restaurants, just small businesses, will sometimes put a Ukraine flag out just to show their support. So we have visual reminders that y'all are still fighting over there on a regular basis, even if it's not verbally stated. Just blue and gold, it definitely stands out, I think, of you every time.
Mm-hmm.
But
and
America
there's definitely
is aware.
still a lot of people that take it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2020s are a very happening decade. So there's a lot of things to compete for as far as attention.
Yeah, that is absolutely sure. And actually, like, I'm trying to think about all the situation from the US point of view. And I think that, you know, like a lot of people here in Ukraine, they, you know, they get sad, and they, you know, they feel like left by US, because, you know, we think, why are you not helping us that much? Why are you, or why not are you letting us to use the rockets for Russian territory, etc. But from the US point of view, how people forget that you have Iran, you have Syria stuff, you have Chinese, you know, like people that just wait for you like to show your weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And the events with like some unknown drones that are flying on top of your military bases, like, just, I think that is like a little bit concerning stuff too. So people forget here that you have a lot of stuff to like have your attention focused on, except for Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to go back to Zelenskyy, and you know, I would ask for correction here, you know, if I'm wrong. But one of the things I'd read is that Zelenskyy was more of a reformer, that he wanted to model the Ukrainian army more on a Western model, and that created some tension. that people were kind of despondent when he was removed because he was replaced by somebody who was more of a Soviet bent. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure actually how to answer to that question, but the stuff about Syrsky, that is now our like replacement for Zaluzhny, actually it may be interesting for you. He is Russian. He finished Moscow University. I don't remember the name, but he has Russian roots. He is Russian in nationality, and he studied in like Moscow, some kind of military university. And he even speaks Ukrainian really, really poorly. He has very, very heavy accent.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, yeah. He and as far as I know, he is like shown to us as a like very brave and radical commander.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is very well seen in the Kursk region operation. So uh, he is not scared to sacrifice some people for some tactical advantage or maybe some kind of surprise to the enemy. And uh, maybe that is like was the point of the replacement. But in terms of reforming, it's still happening. So as far as I know, our military services they work on NATO documents, NATO standards. So we are slowly shifting to this. And in terms of like munition and other stuff, so we still have USSR standard documents, military ones, and nowadays, like modern troops, they switch to American ones and NATO overall. And I think that the situation with these different squads that are able to recruit people on their terms, that have their own advertisement around the city, etc. It shows that overall our military structure is being reformed. So maybe Zaluzhny wanted to, wanted wanted it to happen faster, but it still happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you familiar with the concept of civil society?
Maybe yes, but I do not know how it is translated to Ukrainian.
Think like non-government organizations, charities, activists groups.
Yeah,
stuff like
we have this stuff here, but how to explain it? These activists and these groups are often controlled by someone of power,
Mm-hmm.
someone in the shadows that forces people to think one or the other way. And in these activists, there are some activists, volunteers that are trusted, that are really raising funds, etc., for good causes, and like, we know who they are. But at the beginning of the war, there were a lot of these, little organizations, and they all gathered money, and it turned out that like the majority of them was completely corrupted, and money went completely other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So like people who claimed that they are volunteers, that they are buying cars for the front line, they are buying different supplies or even like drones, other equipment like walkie-talkies, quality electronic warfare, etc. They just claim that they are doing and buying all this stuff, and then they ended up buying like very expensive cars from abroad. Yeah, so in current state of our society, I do not believe in this concept that you described because of like I've mentioned, a lot of bad people that are still in power, and our mindset that is not that was not shifted from the Soviet one yet.
So that's as true in the nonprofit sector as it is in the private and public sectors, then.
I think so.
Gotcha. Yeah, for the benefit of people listening, the reason I ask is that civil society and the development thereof is considered an important barometer in terms of institutional development, economic development, the construction of legitimate public institutions. These are all things that developed countries are considered to have, and that developing countries are considered to be aspiring to build. And one of the things that happened in Ukraine after 2014 is that there was a lot more volunteerism. There were more people kind of trying to get out and shape society and defend the country and whatnot. And so I've been trying to keep track, although it's been difficult since I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian, but I've been trying to keep tabs on how Ukrainian civil society has been developing. But it seems like there's still a long way to go. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're right. But and if you remember, as I have mentioned, we as a society have to point out to our government, to our authorities, different problems that we see. So we are definitely working in that direction. We have like volunteers, activists that are proved. So they have proved by the time, by their activities, like because they were around all these years of war. So and the consequences of their actions were seen very clearly. So we, like as a society, were able to completely like to be completely sure that these people are legit. And yeah, so around like those activists, little social groups are, we have this it happens actually in Telegram channels. We have these volunteer channels that have a lot of subscribers, like 1.5 2 million subscribers, and they like gather money. They have very nice and polished chains of supplies to the army. So the volunteer movement is actually really big and significant in this segment. So without those people, for example, if you want to buy something for like government's money, for money of the country, there have to be a lot of tenders, a lot of documents, a lot of bureaucracy, and it's all really slow. They have to vote for the budget, etc., etc. While the volunteers, they are able to just gather money and just buy something from abroad and use it right away on the front line. It actually is connected to first-person view drones, to like car trucks, pickups. They are really, really needed at the front line. So that is actually the only way why we are still, still capable of doing something. Because if we have some issue, like such called as money gathering is issued with some more or less known volunteer that have some audience in social networks. He says that, for example, such troop really, really urgently needs such a car, and it costs like two or, for example, $5,000, and we need to gather this money SAP. So they would have like place an order and buy it and use it, and like it happens really fast. So in like 1 or 1.5 weeks, they already have their car at the front line and can use it. And if it was conducted like via government, it would have been a lot longer. And maybe some of that would have been stolen.
So stuff is still getting stolen, but there's more scrutiny and transparency now.
Yeah, definitely a lot more transparency. We had this process that is named illustration. So all the people that in government, in cabinet of ministers, they have to declare their money, their property, etc. So, and actually, there are a lot of websites. For example, one website is called Prozoro. It's in Ukrainian Prozoro. In English, it would be like clearly. So you can just type in any name of like physical person or name of organization, and you will be able to see their declaration, the amount of money they declared, like who is responsible for some stuff, etc. So we have a lot of mechanisms to deal with corruption, to deal with this anarchy in our government, but you know there are still a lot going on, and this like cluster of people that is still around. You know, people like volunteers that I've mentioned, they actually try to shed some light on these issues, and like a younger society would try to, you know, battle this Soviet cluster.
Mm-hmm.
Often it resolves in like peaceful protests. Actually, every weekend, a lot of people are going on the main square of the Kyiv, the Independence Square, and they like, you know, show their opinion. It often is connected to the freeing of war captives, like free Azov, free Mariupol defenders, and etc. So like they try to remind our government the real issues that are still around, that there are people still in Russian captivity, that we need to think about them, and you know do everything for them to return home as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's important when people judge Ukraine and its corruption problem to keep in mind that the country is fighting to try to improve that, and that's difficult in any country. You know, the history has shown that. But something else to keep in mind is that the result of a genuine anti-corruption drive, you know, be it by the government or the public or both, is that you're going to hear about more corruption, not less, because of that anti-corruption drive.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's going to make it easy for people to get the wrong idea, you know, especially if they're looking for excuses to not continue to support Ukraine. So I think people listening should remember that, you know, because that's going to come up sooner or later in American politics, certainly, if not also European politics.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because before the war, everything was peaceful, and we knew that there are issues, but they were connected to like the president election in 2019, when like Zelenskyy versus Poroshenko, they have like different stuff to say to each other. They bantered a lot. So like you did this, you did that. So like we had uh, a little bit of information. Before 2014, when it was Yanukovych, we had no information at all. Everything was peaceful. We did not anything because everything was covered. And now, when everything, like when war happens, a lot of internal issues are coming like to the surface, and we see the real amount of the shit that was around all these years, and the real amount of problems that existed and wasn't resolved. So yeah, we as Ukrainians, as citizens, we are terrified by the amount of corrupted people and of the amounts of money that they are stealing. It's absolutely ridiculous. The amount of money they would not be able to spend in 10 lifetimes. Like, just ridiculous.
It's very strange if you think about the human psychology of wealth and how much you can accumulate in modern society, and how strange that is if you look at humans in a natural survival capacity in the wild. We aren't really meant to amass this much worth, like the worth of whole nations, like whole villages and cities. One person can have the wealth of basically an entire village or a city sometimes. And that kind of opportunity is really difficult for a human brain to turn down, especially when other people are accepting those opportunities around them. There's someone in chat who's saying they're from Romania and they're convinced that by the end of this war, Ukraine will have less corruption than Romania. Romania's doing their best as well, but it's hard to change.
Man, Romania is a low bar, though. They've had a lot of problems with that for a while. It's been getting better, but
it sucks because a lot of it boils down to trust. Just trust in other people in society to do their job and to do what they say and to follow the rules. And rules aren't really fun to follow. Like, it's not like, oh, yay, let me just make sure I follow all of this stuff legally to the letter. But it helps everyone have a lot more fair transactions with their time and their energy and their resources if everyone agrees to a certain standard.
Well, that actually leads into my next question, because one of the things I wanted to ask regarded the nature of corruption in Ukraine. Because having studied corruption in China and in Chinese political culture, one of the big driving forces there is that it's not just normal, but it's expected. And your boss actually expects you, generally, to bribe him to get promoted. And the bribes are generally very large. But they know that you can pay it because they understand how much money people at a given level of government somebody can make through corrupt practices. So the bribe for promotion is actually a function of how much money you can make being corrupt. And if you can't, if you're not willing to be corrupt, then you basically can't pay the bribe, and then you're locked out of promotion. And eventually you're just going to get pushed out of public service altogether. So my question is, does corruption in Ukraine work similarly? Is there actually, as we would say in English, does the fish rot from the head? Is there pressure from the upper echelons of Ukrainian society for people at lower echelons, especially in government, to be corrupt? And could that be one of the reasons that it's so persistent?
Well, actually, it's a very good question, and I don't have a real answer to that because I have no information of the structure of the scheme of functioning, like all the mechanisms in government, like different levels. But like from a citizen point of view, I can say that, as I've mentioned, the situation with my driver's license tests. So like people, like if they can do something, that's a mentality. So if you have some kind of power that can be, like used or like even exhausted to the point that you will get as much money as you can, it will be done. So like that's the mentality of some people that I see. So like if they can steal, they will steal. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
If they can bribe, they will bribe or ask for bribes. So like if they have even a little tiny window of opportunity, it will be used. And regarding like social lift, I actually did not see that much of. So like when it comes to my work, none of this is, like I did not observe any of those, but it is very well seen in educational structures, in medical ones. So like if you want to some kind of a paper that states that you are, you have some kind of condition, or you do not have any kind of conditions, you can just pay for it, or at least try to pay for it.
Hmm.
Maybe you'll get caught. Or there are events of those as well. So nowadays we have the structure that is called the Government Bureau of Investigation. So, and it actually sets up different political and government figures, sets up for very big bribes, then it like catches them red-handed, and it is actually made. Then it makes to the news, and it actually happens quite a lot. So that is the way of catching unfair people that have power.
Give
Now,
them
is
a
that
paid
genuine
bribe.
work by the agency, or is that being used by elites for their own purposes?
I cannot answer to that because what is shown in mass media is not independent as well.
Hmm.
If it goes that higher, like if it goes high in like hierarchy of power up to like president and presidential office, then actually first of all everything is really bad for us. The second of all, there is no way of telling that because there won't be like an additional source of information except maybe Russian propaganda ones.
Hmm.
They every time say that our government is corrupted, Zelenskyy is like such and such. He tries to steal a lot of money, he tries to steal all the aid.
Talking as much
That
shit
is
as
like,
possible.
yeah, that is a common narrative of all the Kremlin connected sources of news, even the foreign ones. Like there are a lot of European sources actually that we have information of, different right-wing political forces of Europe being guarded by Russia, just to destabilize the situation in those
Hmm.
countries.
Well, you mentioned the media. I remember reading that since the end of the Soviet Union, most of the media in Ukraine was controlled by oligarchs of one kind or another. So
Yeah,
my
that's true.
question is, what happened to those oligarchs? What has happened to the oligarchs since the war started?
Uh, there are some oligarchs that have been known and have been around. Uh, they somehow were connected to corruption or Russia or both. For example, one of the main news channel, it was called 1+1 if I'm not mistaken. It was controlled by like it was the property, or like it was the in the power of Medvedchuk. Medvedchuk is Putin's how to say it in English. So like
Proxy.
brother-in-law. He's Putin's brother-in-law.
Mhm.
And now we have the information that if Putin were successful in his 3 days invasion of Kyiv, etc., and actually Ukraine be occupied, Ukraine is occupied, Medvedchuk would be like head of presidential office. So
Mhm.
it was like his. Uh, yeah, sorry. Someone in the chat mentions that 1+1 was owned by Kolomoisky. Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the channel I do not remember because I do not watch TV at all, like for 10 years plus, and I do not know the exact names of the channels. But yeah, one of the oligarchs, the other oligarch, not Medvedchuk but Kolomoisky, he is now in prison. So like he was caught in Ukraine. He is waiting for his sentence. Uh, the other oligarch. So some oligarchs they just had the information of the invasion like 2 or 3 days beforehand, before the 21st February of 2022. and they just flee the country and they live somewhere in Monaco or maybe like someplace warm.
Yeah.
They do not think about this stuff anymore.
The
So
Ted Cruz
now,
approach to problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So now we have this stuff that is called TV marathon. It's basically non-stop ongoing news, and it has a lot of Ukrainian propaganda as well. So yeah, propaganda happens from both sides.
Mhm.
It's obvious. So maybe there are some elder people that enjoy watching this. I prefer like some articles, like news from that I get from channels. And actually, I didn't have much time, to deeply solve uh, some issues or find like the amount of like true to false ratio our nowadays news that I get from Telegram channels. But overall picture, as I have described, so something like that.
Gotcha. Well, that kind of brings me to my next question, and this is one I've really wanted to ask you about, because you are correct. You're from the Donbas, right?
Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
right.
So that's a really critical region as far as the narrative around the war, both in Ukraine and Russia. There's a lot of political discord historically in the region, and the identity politics of the region are basically the reason, the war happened. So I really wanted to ask you about the politics of Donbas. Like, what was it like growing up in Donbas? Like, how did people? Well, let me kind of, for the benefit of the listeners, one of the mistakes I made when I was trying to understand this conflict, going all the way back to 2014, when it really started, is I made the mistake of assuming this was kind of like what I mentioned earlier, that this was basically a Balkan style conflict that was predicated on rival ethnic groups. And so that's generally how I framed it. But as I read more about it, I started to realize that's not actually accurate. And, so I would ask you, like, how would you characterize the political cleavages in Donbass?
Okay, so first of all, I want to start. That is a very good question, and I'm really glad you asked it. I have an answer to that. I want to start. I want to describe, my origins. So, like how all the stuff basically happened in Donetsk and why there are so many Russian people there, like ethnically Russians. 100 years ago, when Holodomor uh, was happening, so it was, if you remember, it was like artificial starvation, or let me translate this word,
Famine.
famine. Yeah, right. Thanks. By the Soviet government, and during this, and during when Bolsheviks came, they a lot of Ukrainian people that lived there, especially wealthy people, they were sent to the north, to like Taiga, to Gulag, etc.
Mhm.
So a lot of people were deported from this place, and to replace these people, like so someone would be able to work on coal mines, uh, on other stuff. Uh, they tried to like move Russians from different regions to like to this Donbas area. Uh, what happened with my family? So it was like, some people were moved just on like offer basis. So my granddad, my father's father, he was a scientist, and he is originally from Yekaterinburg. So it's like Ural Mountains of Russia, Ural Mountains region. And my father was born here, was born there. So he is ethnically Russian, and he was born in Yekaterinburg in Russia. And they had these, relocation programs for scientists that would allow them, to like get a higher like paid job. So like they had some good conditions of relocation. And my father's family decided to take this opportunity, and they moved to this Donetsk area, to Donbas. So and there were a lot of those families like that. So there, the Soviet Union created like a nice basis or nice ground, nice conditions for people to move there, and a lot of people did. So uh, after all these events that happened like 100 years ago, and after the World War II, such thing happened that a lot of ethnically Russian people were located at the eastern part of Ukraine. That is like a background.
Mhm.
And then what happened in 2014? So if you remember, there was Maidan in 2013 in Kyiv. So the revolution of dignity. If I'm translating this right to English.
Mhm.
So like we um, had thrown our government away. Yanukovych fled the country, and we had like temporary government at that time. And like a lot of people in Donbas were against it because they tended to stay closer to Russia. They did not want to get closer with Europe, with the Western world, and it was like a reactive substance that only needed a catalyst to start reacting.
Mhm.
And actually, that's what Russia did. So like uh, we had all this, as I have mentioned before, our information like field, our cultural and informational background was very common. We were watching a lot of Russian news, and they have started propaganda already by that time. So
Mhm.
a lot of people were ethnically Russian, plus they were watching a lot of TV. And then the revolution of dignity in Kiev happened. So it was like a breaking point. And Russia decided to use this to its advantage. There were a lot of, such called volunteers from Donbas side, which later was discovered that they are former KGB agents or like uh, federal service of like the
FSB.
yeah, FSB, the analog of uh, oh, sorry, I don't FBA, but FBA is
FBI?
FBI. FBI is like the for internal, right? For internal.
Yes.
So that is the opposite, like CIA. Yeah, am I right?
Yeah, CIA is out, FBI is within.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like that was the analog of CIA forces, and like people, like some figures that were um, made famous really fast. They started to like proclaim Russian narratives, pro-Russian, and but it was actually shown to people from Donbas that they are like rebellion people, rebellion native people, like volunteers that want to fight against Ukraine, that wants to fall upon evil Western hands, something like that. And as I have mentioned, two of my classmates, they watched a lot of TV as well. They decided to go and join the forces of such called rebellion. And as I remember, my wife, she was the first year, like she was a freshman in her university, and they promised to put some good grades for like the students if they go to the meetings on the square with Russian flags. It was Russian flags, and then it was like Russian flags. Russian flag is white, blue, and red, and this flag was black, blue, and red. So like the flag of people of Donetsk Republic that like were invented, and you could go like there and get some money or get a good grade at the university if you like join this meeting and show like everyone that we do not support the revolution of dignity. We want to stay closer to Russia, and actually we want to separate. But all of this were conducted by Russian authorities. And then later, when I uh, visited my hometown, like after 2014, in 2015, 2016, I have seen myself a lot of people that are speaking like uh, deep Russian accent. People in Donbas do not speak like that. So like they speak with a kind of a Ukrainian manner. We have a way to tell that this particular person, for example, is from like another deep region of Russia because he speaks Russian, but entirely different. So like it has very like like in America you have Southern accent, you have New York accent, if I'm not mistaken. So you can tell the difference. You have Texas, like cowboys speak. So you can like tell that this person is from not if is from not this place. He's not native here. And there were a lot of those people, especially like in military uniform. So it was obvious. It was stated that those are either like native rebellions that just went to the military store and bought some equipment, some rifles, some ammo, and other stuff, and they decided to fight. And if there were some kind of like Russian person, it is seen that he's Russian, or there were a lot of people from Dagestan, from Uzbekistan, like people that are not Slavic nationality, but it was seen that they are not around. They are not native here. It was just claimed that they are just volunteers too. They just went from Russia, decided to help to brethren people of Donbas to fight against Western evil world. And they were getting a lot of. They were not uh, getting a lot of Russian troops, but they were getting a lot of like people from organizations that work on a contract basis. For example, like Wagner Group, if you know this. They had them as instructors, so they taught people of Donetsk, Donbas, how to fight. Yeah, Girkin Strelkov. Someone in chat mentioned it. Yeah, right. That's completely correct. Girkin is or Strelkov. It's one of the main figures of the time of 2014, like the leader of the rebellion that actually was discovered to be a GRU or like CIA analog work. So like he's just a person of Russian intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, that is how it boiled down to. And then these such called rebellion troops, they started to get military like vehicles, like these reactive rocket systems. Soviet system that is named Grad, just translated like heavy rain, something. So it is obvious they would not buy it in the fucking military store was supplied by Russia. Yeah, so that's just how it went. And actually, it would be like a really good point to mention that Ukraine military forces were devastated at that time, because before this, Yanukovych was president, had power, and actually made a lot of changes to devastate military forces, to defund them, and he gradually declined the amount of active forces. So like he made everything for the upcoming invasion of Russia to be as smooth as possible.
And you were in Donbas when all this was happening, correct?
Yeah, it was actually, I finished my last year of school. This stuff started happening. I remember a lot of, a lot of banter, a lot of fighting in school about who is like Europe, like pro-Ukraine or pro-Russian people. Even our teachers, they started, that is actually the thing that I hate the most of some people, that they start to, use their position to speak their mind and to try to poison uh, like lesser minds of pupils, school boys and girls. For example, we had a teacher of Russian literature and Russian language. I respected this elderly woman. She was like, she was really, she was really good at her stuff. She was like a great teacher. But when this stuff happened in 2014, she like clicked, something changed in her mind, and she started to like read us some poems about the demons in Ukrainian government, that our country is insane and we need to separate. It was actually, yeah, I'm 100% like serious about this. So she asked us to like say prayers before we go to sleep, so the demons in the our like government who made this revolution of dignity happen, so they would go away. Yeah, it was actually really surreal and terrible experience.
Wow.
It's kind of connected with mob mentality. Whenever large groups of people start to bandwagon on ideas, they become true because so many other people are saying them, even though there isn't really good evidence this is the case. It's if they've been sold because the group and the people who they respect fall in line with these ideas, they will also push them on other people. So it's sort of like what happens when you said she seemed like a nice lady before. She's a group-oriented person who got addicted to the poison Kool-Aid and then wanted to share it with everybody. You're not really your most rational self if you're not being critical of your own propaganda. And most people are not. They like hearing that they're on the correct side and that you're fighting against the evil. You're not on the evil side. It's not the evil side that's backing you up. It's this other group or whatever. So interesting psychology that happens where you can have people who seem to be good put into a situation where they can be corrupted either by money or by propaganda.
Well, I also wanted to ask, having grown up in Donbass, what distinguishing characteristics did you notice in the people who supported one or the other side? Like, was there something consistent that distinguished them?
Not that I remember of. Actually, it was really surprising for like most people around me, to show their true colors. That happened both in 200, sorry, in 2014 and 2022. So like a lot of people that were actually considered as your like friends that you were seeing every day, or like with some people I've spent like whole childhood. I went to all the classes with them, share a lot of memories of our past. With some of them, I even went to kindergarten. So like I've spent really whole life with those people, and then like click, something happens, and you see completely different person with like absolutely different point of view on the world.
We had a, not to equate the issues, but a similar social phenomenon happened with the COVID epidemic, and people were very rabidly advocating for one side or the other, and it became such an intense political issue that friendships were broken and people needed to relocate because just the attitude was so combative and angry at each other, when before that event happened there wasn't a reason for the animosity, but people went to bat so hard for their side that they didn't really see their brothers and sisters anymore. They saw a red team versus blue team, and they have to really cheer for their team. It becomes a tribalism thing rather than, in this case, a complex set of circumstances and corruptions that countries have and propaganda that's being shared. Like, it's a very tangled situation to try to articulate everything that's going on and what people can do about it. But if you give them some short version quip that's really catchy and makes you sound smart, it makes you sound justified, and scares you of the other side, then that's very catchy in getting other humans to share it with each other. But it's interesting to hear about this much longer game of molding people's minds and shifting the demographics of the region before they go for a conventional invasion. It's like the Kool-Aid was already being passed around over the border, so whenever people stepped over, no one would panic and they would see them as liberators. Whereas if there wasn't as much information about this and as many incentives to be pro-Russian, then the people walking over with military gear would obviously be seen as villains. So yeah, there was a lot of grooming that was done to prepare the area, it sounds like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually, one of the main reasons why they didn't, launch a full-scale invasion in 2014 was the exact thing that you are talking about. So, like, people in Russia were unprepared for this. Like yesterday, we were brothers, and I've seen some psychological, not psychological, I'm sorry, social studies that describe that before 2014, 90% of Ukrainians were like had a good relationship with Russia. So like they thought of Russia as something good. After 2014 is what it was like 50-50. So it took 8 years to shape Russians people minds to to believe that we are bad, we are working with America and producing some biolaboratory gene modified stuff, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just to further clarify that political divide in Donbas, uh, was it the case that the divide between the community was purely Russian versus Ukrainian?
Yeah, I think so, because it became like, especially in the mouths of propaganda that were like speaking a lot of the time, it was really like polarized.
Mhm.
So it was like Neuro just said, it was like black and white. So like Ukraine was like bad, Russia good. That's it.
Sure.
So like, and for minds of people, especially like elderly people that lived in Soviet times, and it was like a prepared ground for this thought to like just invade their minds. They were ready for this.
Mhm.
They were, like Neuro said, they were just groomed to like become polarized and reject Ukraine at all levels.
Mhm.
That was actually that is the actually 100 precise 100% precise thing that happened to my grandma. That is exactly what happened to her.
Mhm.
She was watching a lot of news, and like she was just prepared to make a transition.
Yeah. But you yourself are, effectively uh, Russian. You speak Russian. You share the culture and whatnot. But you did not side with Russia in the conflict, correct?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So it wasn't the case that all Russians, so to speak, in Donbas sided with Russia, right?
Yeah, of course. My father is 100% native Russian. Like his nationality is Russian. I'm half Russian, uh, 1/4 Ukrainian, and 1/4 Jewish. So, and we have a lot of Russian people, like natively Russian, that are fighting for Ukraine, and we have a lot of like native Ukrainians that are fighting for Russia, and
Mm-hmm.
it is actually seen in our surnames. So, like Russian surnames, they end with a like they have a certain ending, and like Ukrainian for surnames, they have a certain ending as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and we have this stuff mixed. So it has nothing to do with the real nationality. It has to do only with the point of view, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
for like lesser intelligent people from Donbas, it was uh, like a really important background that they are Russians, they are like Slavic, and they will fight against Western world. So uh, even now, if you have seen this symbolism, they have like this like letter Z, letter O, and letter V, like ZOV.
Mm-hmm.
So like from Russian Zov, it translates like the colon, and they say like the ZOV, so like the calling of blood, Zov Krovi, the calling of blood. So they like address the fact that they are natively Russian, that they are superior, and they are like staying together and fighting against Western like plague, like they like they speak about.
It's pretty weird hearing that the excuse is you're fighting against the Western plague when they could just attack a Western country directly, like one of the main
Yeah,
ones.
but they bantered about NATO expansion. They said that if Ukraine is in NATO, it will be really like 2 or 3 minutes of aircrafts, ETA to Russian cities, etc. But now they have Finland in NATO, and it turns out that it was not like the really important issue
Mm-hmm.
for them. So yeah, the main like course of narrative was that we are shifting towards like Western world, towards democracy, and they just did not want to let it happen. And they tried to find a lot of arguments, like biolaboratories, like NATO bases, neighboring Russian uh, Russian borders. But it's all just excuses because now they have a whole like NATO country to their border, the whole Finland, and they like, okay, let it be.
That's kind of disproving their point there. There's a question from chat. Do you feel that Ukrainian social media is plagued by Russian trolls or bots for further propaganda?
Uh, I guess not, because we like have trusted sources of information that we know that they are not Russian influenced. But there are some, some Ukrainians that decided to sell out. They sold their souls to Kremlin, and now they spread like these narratives that are Russian related. But if there is like a Telegram channel that has some kind of discussion, and you are able to like write comments to this discussion, it will be flooded with Russian bots like almost immediately. So it takes a lot of like filtering right now. But on the other hand, considering the amount of different sources of information, it's actually almost impossible to like hide some really important in big events. We have like different points of view, and we have like satellite images. So if Russians are striking, like are making like some kind of successful attack, we cannot hide it, and it goes the other way too. So if we see the news, we see that some kind of Russian power plant or plant that produced explosives, it was like attacked and then it was destroyed. It can be trusted because it can be falsified anyway. We actually have the news that Lloyd Austin right now in Kyiv, so maybe something interesting will happen. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Probably not until January, I would guess, since they're going to want to wait until after the election. And if there's a change in government, it'll take at least until probably January or so for any agreement to kind of come to the fore. Well, I figured I'd take the opportunity here, again, since you're from Donbas, a rare opportunity for a Westerner like me. One of the talking points that the Russians used a lot during and after the Donbas war is that the Ukrainians were shelling Donetsk, specifically the city.
It was completely false.
Yeah. So, what about that? Like, what is it? Just completely a lie, or was there just fighting that was mischaracterized? What actually happened in
No,
Donbass?
it's a complete lie.
After?
I can give you a lot of examples from my personal experience and from experience of my family, and from like different like pieces of video information, and even some interviews with Russian like uh, undiscovered Russian soldiers that were participating in these events. So they were ordered to like shell different regions. For example, like they name some kind of like artillery. It works like on squares, on like so they it covers some kind of area. So, and for example, artillery troop is ordered to shell that particular area, and that like this soldier that was interviewed, he says that he understands that this area is where like houses in Donetsk are like located. So he refuses to complete the order, and he faces consequences because of his refusal, etc. So they did this like not not in order to uh, deal some damage, but to justify their further invasion and escalation. And actually, there were evidence too that like uh, people with cameras and with like videotaping equipment, with microphones, etc., they were like ready and waiting in some area of the city because it's about to get shelled, and then they know it because they like orchestrated it, so they could film a nice like piece of news on this side. So like, see, Ukraine bombs its cities. Ukraine bombs no such city, for example. So I do not know about like the ratio of like real hits that were maybe accidental or orchestrated, that were made purely in purpose of like showing a particular propaganda picture.
Hmm.
But I for sure know that this propaganda picture event has happened,
Hmm.
and like I think it was not singular one.
Gotcha. I don't know how you want to characterize the guys fighting sort of on the other side, so to speak. You're the Donbas war. I don't know if those are the Russians or the separatists or whatever your preferred framing, but in your experience in the Donbas, did you ever see them shelling the Ukrainian side of the border, or the line of separation, rather?
No, I did not see with my own eyes any like battle activities. I only heard.
Hmm.
Uh, I remember when I visited in 2014. It was the winter of 2014. Uh, I know that rocket launch system was placed like in close proximity of my house because I was able to like hear and feel the start of the engines of rockets and how they fly. So like not not really explosions that are caused by hitting something, but the like the starting points of rockets. So like when
Hmm.
rocket starts to fly, it produces a really loud sound, and our windows shook. So like it was really hurt and felt with your own body that there is a rocket launcher somewhere in proximity, like grad system or like tornado system, Smerch tornado. They called it. So like it's similar to HIMARS, but like so Soviet from Soviet production, older older stuff of rocket launcher.
And this
Uh,
was separatist controlled or Ukrainian controlled?
it was separatist controlled. It was already occupied, Makiivka, so the city near to Donetsk in the winter of 2014. So it was already occupied. We
Gotcha.
were able to visit, as I have mentioned, if you prove that you are like that you have registration from this place, you were able to pass all the block posts, all the like if I'm translating this word right, checkpoints, like military checkpoints that are placed along the road to check IDs and other documents of people. So yeah, uh, I really clearly remember this event that connected to like creating a picture of Ukraine shelling Donetsk
Hmm.
while it was like orchestrated, and the news groups that no, they already knew that there will be a hit, so they like prepared in advance. Then some houses were shelled by like rebellions, and then it was pictured like this was a Ukraine, this was a Ukrainian hit,
Hmm.
and the news group like these troops with camera equipment, with microphones, etc. They were like ready and waiting to, like, get on site of attack.
Mm-hmm. Did you spend any time in the parts of Donetsk controlled by the separatists after the Donbas war? I don't want to say ended, since it never really ended, but around 2015, 2016.
Yeah, I visited my grandma. I visited my friends that were still there, and the entire family of my wife is still living there. So, like, the main purpose of our visit was to visit her family.
Mm-hmm.
So her father and mother and even little sister are still in Makiyivka. They
Mm-hmm.
like living by Russian rules right now. So now
Yeah.
we have no way of visiting them, but we did before the COVID. And actually, I remember the surreality of uh, making purchases in shops with rubles. I have always used grivnas,
Mm-hmm.
our like national currency, grivna, and it was really surreal for me to like pay for bread, for milk, like pay in public transport with rubles. It was like not right for me.
Mm-hmm. So, what was it like in the DPR?
It was pretty much the same. Nothing really changed in terms of like scenery, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people moved away, and yeah, just the main like difference that were observed by me is people in military clothes with guns on the streets that by their own will can ask you for your ID and check if you are like common in this. Aren't you a foreigner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
Everything
kind
was
of
pretty much the same.
obsessive checking seems very paranoid compared to how like people in the US see each other. To be asked for your paperwork and stuff randomly is really rude. Like you would only need to have things checked if you specifically broke a law or if you specifically needed to apply for something new. But aside from that, people don't really hassle you for identification.
Yeah. Well, it was mandatory actually to carry your ID with you because you can you could be checked anytime if you are local, and if you are caught during the curfew, you would be placed into this like uh, little jail, some sort. So you could be punished, or you could be like kept for a couple days, or you could be sent to like dig some holes to help like the rebellion to like build their uh, trenches. Actually, a lot of drinkers, a lot of alcoholics, a lot of drug addicts, they were caught on the streets of Donetsk, and they were sent to dig trenches.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember. This was like a therapy with like hard labor.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I remember was kind of surreal for me is seeing Russian products on shelves in shops, in grocery shops, etc. So like really the stuff that I haven't seen never that I have never seen, like some products that have like deep Russian origin.
Mm-hmm.
They were never sold while it was like Ukrainian times.
Mm-hmm.
And as I have mentioned, to pay for those products in rubles felt completely wrong.
felt off, huh?
Yeah.
Now, wasn't the DPR effectively a one-party state?
What do you mean by that?
Like, they didn't have real elections. It was basically an authoritarian government.
Uh, yeah, I think that elections, you know, you are mistaken. Like democratic country with some kind of conglomerate that appeared on fully military Russian basis. There was like no such thing as elections. It was
Hmm.
non-existent. It was not an option. You cannot vote for something. It was just there.
Gotcha.
And actually, the same happened with Lugansk. So
Mm-hmm.
like it was another republic. And funny thing, during COVID times, it was impossible to get from Lugansk People Republic to Donetsk People Republic because borders were closed due to the COVID.
Mm.
It's really funny. And they even have different flags. So like Donetsk, they have black, blue, red, like Russian, but instead of white color, there was a black color. And in Lugansk, instead of white color, there was light blue color.
Mm. Yeah, they were trying to pretend to be independent countries, correct?
Yeah, and they even have their own Ministry of Foreign like affairs. They have like uh, they had established some connections, international connections with other countries. It was really funny to observe.
I don't think anybody ever recognized them, though, right?
The first country to recognize them, I guess it was Russia in
Yeah, Russia. True.
2022, like 2 days prior to the invasion.
Oh, right, that's right. Just before.
Yeah,
I remember taking notes on that because I thought it was big news. I didn't
yeah.
realize what was about to happen.
That is actually when we like first thought of this like a very serious stuff, but still we did not believe that, they will actually invade.
Mm.
It's hard to imagine that they would escalate with violence when they could have just continued the same soft power tactics of propaganda and administrative control and funding and corruption. Like they could have gone about it in more of the roguish way rather than the barbarian way, which is just to smash stuff and change the lines. But they combine the two methods and do the sneaky spy stuff first to change people's minds and then stomp through whenever it's softened up.
Yeah, but nowadays, the one thing that I actually understood and acknowledged the most is that people can adapt to actually everything.
Mm.
So even having no property, having our parents' house destroyed, I still can maintain a pretty sane mind, and still am capable of working and doing stuff, and still have hopes for the future.
Hell yeah. He has the fighting spirit, the man. Let's go. Well, I appreciate you. It's a lot of growth that happens whenever you go through conflict, and I'm glad that you've been unharmed so far and that your family's okay. It's very
Thanks a lot.
sobering to hear your take on everything.
My
Are we
pleasure.
out of time?
I should probably go to bed at some point. We've taken 3 hours and 45 minutes of his time, but I believe we could do a follow-up if you're down. How many of your questions did we get through, Agent Smith?
About half.
Half? Okay, we should do a follow-up.
All right.
But thank you for staying up as well. We have three people talking in the call. I'm from LA currently. Agent Smith is in Texas, and Bittersugar is talking to us from Kyiv. This has been a great conversation. I will post the VOD for this, and this will be on YouTube. So if you have any comments, feel free to leave those. And we will see you all on the next episode of World Discussion with Agent Smith.
Yeah. Thanks again. Always a privilege. And special thanks to Bittersugar for making it all possible.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. It was a real blast for me. I had a lot of pleasure and had a lot of talking in English. I've shaken off my rust.
Hell yeah,
I'm
you
looking
did.
forward to continue our conversations.
You've gained +3 int from this conversation.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks a lot.
Yeah, well, I'll poke you about scheduling a follow-up.
Critical success.
Oh, yeah. Best of luck, brother. Stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe too. Thanks
GG.
a lot. Take care.
Nice. Well done, gang.